My fellow Americans, I must speak to you tonight about a mounting danger in Central America that threatens the security of the United States. This danger will not go away. It will grow worse, much worse, if we fail to take action now. I'm speaking of Nicaragua, a Soviet ally on the American mainland, only 2 hours flying time from our own borders. With over $1 billion in Soviet blockade, the communist government of Nicaragua has launched a campaign to subvert and topple its democratic neighbors. Using Nicaragua as a base, the Soviets and Cubans can become the dominant power in the crucial corridor between North and South America. Established there, they will be in a position to threaten the Panama Canal, interdict our vital Caribbean sea lanes, and ultimately move against Mexico. Should that happen, desperate Latin peoples by the millions would begin fleeing north into the cities of the southern United States or to wherever some hope of freedom may be.
Se partió en Nicaragua, otro hierro caliente. Se partió en Nicaragua, otro hierro caliente. Porque el águila daba su señal a la gente. Porque el águila daba su señal a la gente. Andará Nicaragua. Andará Nicaragua, ¿cómo no? Andará Nicaragua, sí. Andará Nicaragua. Andará Nicaragua.
Well, Keith, welcome back to The State Between Us, your fourth appearance, third for the freebies.
Oh my gosh, yeah.
Yeah, you're practically an institution now.
Okay. Well, thanks for having me along.
Absolutely. Thank you. I invited you here because today I'm talking about John Singlaub and finishing up the Western Goals story. And, you know, this is a guy that's been probably more definitive to my childhood than he has been occupying my mind. You know, like John Singlaub architected a lot of like what it meant to grow up middle class in America as a child in the 80s in this way. But this is the most I've ever really sat down and learned about him. But Keith, you know, I know you've been researching these motherfuckers since before I knew about them through your Wackel genre.
Yeah, all that stuff. Yeah, the Rambo, the embodiment of the pointy-headed, egg-headed bureaucrat hating, almost vigilante. Just get out of our way, eggheads. We're gonna do this. You know, that kind of attitude that was very prevalent in movies and pop culture throughout the 80s.
Oh yeah,
Singlaub is like a person that like personifies that.
The universal soldier.
Yeah, the Rambo, the Bronson, the Clint Eastwood. You know,
if you learn about him before you see him, you know, you might get a different picture of what you're looking at there in your mind's eye. He's not a Rambo type physically.
He looks like an extra from that Elf movie.
Yes, he does look like a magical creature, Keith, which is why, you know, when I was sitting down to write this story, I could not shake the feeling that I was maybe introducing you to a mystical world here.
Yeah. Got the cosplay elf ears already equipped.
Well, let me introduce John then, because that's exactly where we're going to start, with his little ears. So Keith is going to kick in when he feels it. I'm relying on, you know, his like background familiarity to help me through some of the stuff that I definitely missed here doing this research.
But as you said, I'm going to be the Flavor Flav to your Chuck D.
That's exactly right.
So you're carrying this one, and I'm just going to kind of pop in and take little pot shots and then back out.
Perfect. So, John K. Singlaub was a gnome paladin who came to prominence after the great sundering of the deep state, when the high priests of the Council for National Policy, the American Security Council, and Nam Jesus resurrected their defeated champion, Barry Goldwater, by transferring his soul into the body of a middling coastal bard named Ronald Reagan. Keith, this was a magical time.
All right.
A time when Nancy Reagan the Empress Consort, consulted a red wizard of Thay, the Great Quigley, who interpreted the stars to guide the era of Reagan. It was a time when the great powers of the realm harnessed the might of the sun and threatened each other's cities with all-consuming hellfire. When communist doppelgangers were rumored to be shape-shifting their way into the very heart of the empire, and when the only bulwark against them, a ragtag bunch of criminally insane heroes known as the CIA, had been gutted by the former emperor, the weak-willed farmer wrongly elevated to the throne by the complacent denizens of America. The age of Carter had ended, however, and John Kirk Singlaub, the retired adventurer, felt the beck and call of a great quest to restore glory to the empire by bringing order to the hinterlands and rebuilding the warrior ethos of the old guard. Thus, despite his diminutive build and elephantine ears, the Feyborn gnome Singlaub would prepare the United States of America for the coming red hordes he had foreseen in his visions.
Oh my God! I'm the profligate D&D references. I'm feeling pretty seen right now.
I'm glad.
I don't know if you're doing this on purpose, but knock it off.
Well, Keith, did you bring your dice pouch? I thought I told you.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah.
Character sheet.
No,
You ready?
Always. Yeah.
Okay. Cool.
I if I see it in here, I'm somewhere. I have. Here we go. Can I just read you a quote that just completely goes with what you just said?
Absolutely.
From this book, Gold Warriors. I was just checking this out because Singlaub is at least an NPC in the Gold Warriors story. That's a book by Sterling and I believe Peggy Seagrave. Yes. And here we go. Marcos had connections beyond the CIA to a shadowy network called the Enterprise, a cluster of private intelligence organizations and private military firms. These were staffed by former CIA and Pentagon officers who saw themselves as paladins of the Cold War.
Yes.
So
that is so deeply vindicating, Keith.
Yes, they literally are paladins. So roll for initiative.
Well, our story, though, begins in an age of even greater antiquity. Long ago, in the 1855th year of Nam Jesus, in the remains of the old empire, not yet conquered by the new. And that, Keith, is Nicaragua.
All right.
So here's how this episode, I think, is going to go. I wrote this script, and, it does meander a bit. It's highly representative of my mind and how it works. And so I'm glad you're here. So we're gonna talk a bit about Nicaragua. We're gonna talk a lot about John. We're gonna talk about Wackle. We're gonna talk about the Iran-Contra affair in so much as we feel capable. And that's kind of the plan here. And it all comes back to Western goals, which will be a big player in this story.
And by Western goals, we're literally talking about the John Birch Society's private FBI.
Yes. Insane. And some of the ideological champions of, what we now see in the
I went
today.
back and listened to your Larry McDonald Western Goals thing, and you said something there that I just kind of want to repeat and just boost the signal on this, because it's amazing. All the books, everything that's been written about the John Birch Society, they arrived on the scene in 1958. They simultaneously pissed off a lot of respectable people and also galvanized and magnetized a lot of the fringe. But by the mid-60s, especially post-JFK hit, they were widely discredited, and all of the respectable, the William Buckleys of the world, did their little kayfabe distancing act.
Yeah.
And they fell into obscurity, and that was the end of that. The end.
Ha.
And it's like, no, the Council for National Policy people were completely staffed by, young Birchers that had all grown up and took power. And Western Goals was literally started by Robert Welch's successor.
Yes.
To the JBS.
Exactly. A true believer, a paladin in his own way as well.
So there's the quote. The quote is, I think it goes like this: first they ignore you, then they laugh at you, then they fight you, and then you win.
Ah.
And some people say that was Gandhi that said that, but this is 2025 and it's choose your own reality.
Okay.
So I'm going to go with Robert Welch said that.
Word. I can be with you there.
That's from now on. That is a Robert Welch quote. We live in his world now.
Yeah.
Please proceed, sir.
Sure. Well, maybe now's a good time to point out that the last time you came on the show, it sent me down this kind of spiral into the 19th century where I found my roots. Well, thank you, but it was needed.
You got to do a good lore. They call this a lore dump. You know, you got to really.
That's right. Yes, That was a fucking lore dump. And you know what? Here's another one. So the first president of modern Nicaragua was a murderous lunatic from Tennessee named William Walker. And he was one of the first to innovate a radical new way of spreading democracy in Central America by landing a team of mercenaries there to, quote, clear the land for American business interests. And by the following year, Walker had declared himself president and was recognized as such by the United States. He does not hold it for long because the legendary industrialist Cornelius Vanderbilt, none other, was less than satisfied with the upstart's insufficiently free market rule and undertakes his own fun take on democracy spreading in Central America by covertly supplying rebel forces against Walker's government. And so for the next 70-some years, Nicaraguans would get bounced back and forth between these two great tactics of democratization: the landing of U.S. death squads and the supplying of guerrilla death squads, until the country falls under the boot of a murderous family of gangsters known as the Somozas and their death squads, whose rule lasts until 1979. So, as far as lore dumps go, pretty death squaddy already.
Yeah. Somoza contributed troops, sent them to Vietnam to fight with the Yankees.
That's so fucking crazy.
And was very, very upset that his support from the United States under Carter dried up.
Yeah. Well, he's got a friend.
I sent my people to Vietnam for you, and you're not going to bail me out? No.
Mm-hmm.
Anyway.
Yeah, well, we'll get to that great betrayal in due time. But back here in the 19th century, still between 1894 and 1899, that's 5 years, right? In a 5-year span, U.S. Marines assaulted Nicaragua at least 4 separate times to ensure the stability of U.S. capital interests there. It's practically a yearly holiday. And in 1909, the U.S. leaned its mighty weight against the elected nationalist government of Zelaya in order to install their own man. Private citizens of the U.S. empire got caught mining the San Juan River with explosives. Keep this in mind. There is some covert mining of Nicaragua's waterways, and Zelaya's government executes them for terrorism. The U.S. government, on their part, used that bloody incident as a pretext for their own forceful invasion, which forces Zelaya to resign and making way for a U.S.-controlled puppet state again. And so throughout the 1910s, U.S. citizens were in charge of the Nicaraguan official government customs office. They were in charge of the government-owned railways and all that kind of shit. These were U.S. citizens running those political positions as the American empire exacted a crippling schedule of loan payment from the battered Nicaragua. Strangely enough, Keith, weirdly enough, though, the locals didn't like it. They didn't care for this. I think they hated democracy, probably.
And freedom.
They probably hated freedom. Who knows, though? Who knows? So, in 1912, the Marines land in Nicaragua once more. They slaughter a bunch of Nicaraguans, and then, drunk on victory and adrenaline, rampage through the country and Managua. Incidentally, this force was led by none other than Smedley Butler, whose name should ring a bell.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Smedley Darlington Butler.
That's right. I guess the nice thing you can say about him was that he was the eventual foiler of the business plot, and if I remember right, he also stood by the bonus army marchers too. He wasn't. He was their hero, so that's also a point, I guess, for Butler.
Yeah,
but not this one. This is not great for him. Butler was okay. Like privately critical of the invasion. He said that it said correctly that it was basically sacrificing. I mean, he was concerned with American lives. Okay, he's Smedley Butler, saying that it was these people were getting killed for the banks, which is more or less correct, right? But nonetheless, he does do his duty. He installs the State Department's chosen candidate there to lead the country, and the U.S. and sets up a kind of semi-permanent U.S. Marine presence, which would last for 21 more years there. Leslie Cockburn, who you recommended her book, is that Out of Control?
Yeah, it's one of them. Butler was able to, kind of confess his sins in his book, War is a Racket.
Yes.
But at the time when the sins were being committed, he was apparently all in. And, that's the deal. If you're in the military, you do follow orders. That is the point. It's not for you to be have main character syndrome, as they say in the tabletop role-playing game world. You are part of a team, and you got to do what you got to do.
Tell you what, Keith, let's check in with John Singlaub later and ask him what he thinks about that. Yeah. Well, that guy had main character issues.
He definitely
did.
Yeah.
Yes. So, Leslie Cockburn writes that the U.S. Marine presence in Nicaragua basically created its own justification by the rebellions and the civil strife that it helped to provoke. It's a perfect system. It's a nice tight loop. So, in 1926, when the actual protagonist of today's story, John Singlaub, was just a wee gnomish child traipsing through the mystical wildlands of Independence, California, America's most interesting fascist, the U.S. legate Lawrence Dennis, was being sent to Nicaragua with a contingent of Marines, leading directly to the martyrdom of Augusto Sandino and the rise of the Somoza dictatorship after a little a bump in between.
Wow.
Yeah.
Somozas versus Sandinos. This is right. Foreshadowing events that would take place in a later age.
Exactly.
Of Middle America, Earth. I mean,
I think it's Central America, Keith. It's called Central America.
Oh, I was calling it Middle Meso Earth. I don't know.
Yes.
Anyway,
yes, exactly right. So I don't know. I just like anything Lawrence Dennis is involved as a subject. He is just one of those interesting gray eminences behind the curtain, connected to all sorts of the Lindberghs. The Luces. He had his fingers everywhere. And here he was working for the U.S. government in Nicaragua, doing a coup.
It's pretty strange.
Yeah. From what I can tell, actually, what he did was very important to the story because it's Dennis who would have been there when the Nicaraguan National Guard is established. I don't know his personal level of involvement, but he claims he basically did everything. But they're going to say that kind of thing,
right? But
the Nicaraguan National Guard.
The whole point of fascism is everybody gets to be a main character.
Yeah.
You get your dignity, and you get your dignity, and you get your dignity, and everybody look under your chairs. You all get your dignity that we took from you back. So, never going to be a surprise.
Yeah,
to find somebody saying, "I'm the chosen one. I'm the chosen one."
Yeah.
Anyway,
which always inevitably leads to a Fuhrer fight. That's just it's built into the system. But these Nicaraguan National Guard, they're terrible. Their reign is bloodthirsty and infamous, and they acted as the U.S.'s personally trained attack dog for decades of this. So Augusto Sandino's rebellion against the empire turns against him. He surrenders to the National Guard, who murder him a short time later. And the reign of Somoza secure, the U.S. Marines withdraw finally, and President Roosevelt at the time lovingly refers to the Nicaraguan tyrant as, quote, our son of a bitch, which sounds very him.
Yeah.
So that's part one, Keith. That's our intro to our space and place here. But of course, this isn't about Nicaragua.
No.
This is about a gnome paladin, John K. Singlaub. So, as Somoza was securing his rule in Nicaragua here in part two, in the mid-1930s, an even smaller version of John K. Singlaub as a child, already knew that he wanted to be an officer as a young boy. Little Johnny, as I'm sure they called him, graduated from Van Nuys High School in Los Angeles in 1939. He had wanted to beeline straight for the military academy, but according to John, he was denied entry because his father was both a Democrat and a Union man. And John Singlaub remembers having a lot of resentment towards unions from that moment.
Wait, his dad was a Democrat and a member of a union, so they wouldn't let him join the army?
That story sounds like bullshit to me. Officer Corps. He wanted to be an officer, but that's what he says.
This is in his
autobiography.
His autobiography. Wow. Okay.
A hazardous duty.
It's just really hard to. Anyway, go ahead. Sure.
This is actually a good point. Yeah. So a lot of John's life is kind of narrated through his eyes. It's not probably very useful as like for historicity's purpose, but it is very useful to like read into his like personal emotional motivations, what he thought about himself. It's an autohagiography that he wrote, and anybody who writes one of those, yeah.
This is beside the point, but Flavor Flav on the scene here. There's a history of the Young Americans for Freedom and the conservative movement in the 60s called The Other Side of the 60s that I read a few years ago. And a lot of the young conservatives of the late 50s and early 60s, they saw conservatism as a way to rebel against their parents' generation.
Yeah.
Because they were all New Dealers and FDR lovers and whatever, and was like, screw you, Dad. I'm going to read Ayn Rand. Yeah. And so here's Singlaub doing the same shtick, but like in like 1939. Like, I hate liberals but somehow he did manage to get into the military in spite of his father having the wrong party affiliation.
That's right.
Okay.
And
back to the story. I'm sorry.
Well, this is how he got into the military, because he instead decides to enter UCLA and joins up with the university's federally mandated chapter of the Reserve Officers Training Corps, the ROTC, which for listeners is the brainchild of the original Plattsburgh group that created the American Legion. Back in my day, we called them ROTCs, but I had some ROTC friends in high school.
So he couldn't get into the military because his dad was a libtard,
Yes.
but he could go to a university in California, Los Angeles, no doubt, and that somehow paved the way. Okay, I'm tracking. Sure.
All right. Well, he's on his way now. And it was while John Singlaub was proudly marching through the halls of UCLA, I assume in uniform, even on days when you didn't have to, he first encountered a communist. It was his first time. He was just a freshman in 1939 and had yet to get wise to the wily ways of the commie conspiracy. But he resented his father's union membership, so he was at least partly there already. Interestingly, or maybe not at all interestingly, I don't know, John's problem with the Pinkos, at least in his autobiography, doesn't have very much to do with communism. At least as like a subject, you know what I mean? As like something to like think about or study. Like he thought they were all just like two-faced, basically. Like when he was a fish in UCLA, they insulted him by calling him a little militarist who wanted war, which, by the way, perfect description in every way of John Singlaub. But they were saying that to him when Stalin. This is how Singlaub describes the situation. He says that they called him a militarist when Stalin sought peace with Hitler, but when Hitler took the war to the Soviets in 1941, John was annoyed that those same commies were now telling him that he was part of the anti-fascist resistance. He was annoyed that now they liked him. And so, and he says he didn't know much about commies or fascists at the time. He just wanted to be a soldier, so he's just annoyed.
Well, that tracks.
Sure.
All of it tracks.
Yeah.
There was a huge, schism amongst the communists outside of the Iron Curtain didn't exist, but outside of the communist world.
Oh, absolutely.
There was a lot of affection for them amongst certain types of people in the United States and Western Europe that was squashed by the non-aggression pact between Stalin and Hitler. It was just like everything that you guys say you stood for just went bye-bye And this caused a lot of people to become ex-communists.
Right. Okay.
Pretty quickly. So the ideological flip-flopping like fish out of water, and some of that splashing onto the young Singlaub, who is just out of high school and probably didn't know a whole lot about communism versus fascism.
No.
It all tracks. Go ahead, man.
I do wonder, though. I do wonder what he was listening to, because he doesn't write much about what he was doing, like how he was engaging in culture so much. It's a very like, I did this and then I did this and then I went there. But he's not talking about, what he spent his nights listening to. And I don't know if maybe he was one of these nerds in high school that listened to Father Coughlin or something. Like, I really don't know. It could be that he downplays it too. Like, it's hard to say with him. He's like literally a fucking CIA agent.
Well, the CIA didn't exist at that point.
Yeah, sorry, we're not there quite yet. There's some very important things that happen in the meantime. One of them is that John abandons his apparently quite lengthy political science studies at UCLA to join the war effort. He is immediately commissioned a second lieutenant in the U.S. Army and tapped right away by the OSS to coordinate with the French resistance for Operation Jedburgh.
I've heard that there's just some kind of weird subculture amongst paratroopers. It's just like there's just certain kind of character makeup that you got to have to be a paratrooper, and that like it's kind of like a little fraternity amongst themselves. Like if you're cool enough to jump out of airplanes. I mean, we have skydiving now; it's a sport or whatever. Back then, it must have been terrifying to have been among. I mean, these are the first use in wartime.
Oh yeah. Yeah.
Of such things as paratroopers. I'm sure they were elite and they saw themselves that way. But yeah, Jedburgh. Yeah, he was a Jedburgh.
Indeed. And when he landed, he again runs afoul of the communists. And because he gets in touch with the Maquis resistance, he resents the leftist element of that resistance, the FTP, for things like, he says, this is also his autobiography, stealing supplies and weapons intended for John's preferred resistance fighters, the secret army, the more right-wing part of the resistance. So John finds commies to be untrustworthy and full of distracting bluster, and shows some contempt for the way they deal with SS prisoners. In his autobiography, he cites the executions of Vichy and Nazi military police by the FDP in his autobiography as like an example of like, communist cruelty in a way. Or rather, maybe a lack of civility is probably more the image.
Yeah, it's World War II, so the order of the day is civility and gentlemanliness, right?
Yeah, especially with the SS, Keith. Come on, look how they're dressed. Yeah. He loves a man in uniform. You can't deny that.
This recalls Ronald Reagan visiting SS cemeteries in the 80s and saying, these young German kids, they didn't know any better. They were just like Singlaub. They're just in high school. They don't know anything about communism or fascism. They're just as much as victims as anybody in Buchenwald, Good job, Ronnie. Anyway, so yes, they were rather ungentlemanly executing Nazis, and SS. So okay.
Yeah, it annoys him. It rubs him the wrong way. I mean, he's all about killing people, but this seemed rude to him. So
you don't have to be a jerk about it. You
don't have to be a jerk about it, exactly. So although there is a story about Singlaub where his first like takedown of a German is when he's like shot, right? Doesn't he like take a round kind of to the face or something like that, or near, which would explain a lot about how that dude looks. But the story is that he rushed up on this German sniper and exhausted like 4 clips into this corpse and like screamed. And it's one of his like, I'm a cool dude stories. So there's a kind of a conflicting image that John projects as like the ultimate crazy berserker warrior, as well as like the hyper careful planning covert ops kind of guy. He kind of has it both ways, I think.
Yeah, that's, I don't know. It's, I chopped down the cherry tree and I can never tell a lie. I read more of the last 100 pages of Hazardous Duty, and you're in the first 100 pages.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Because, who was there? There weren't a lot of newspapers around and whatever. You can make up all kinds of stories,
Yeah.
I was in Shaving Ryan's privates too. I emptied 2 clips into one of the Huns, and like, yeah, did you? Or is that just something you're telling people later?
Yeah, but also it's a story about him freaking out and wasting ammo too. So I don't know. I'm not sure if it's as cool as he thinks it is, but
right.
But anyway, the U.S. forces take Normandy, and the French front turns in the Allies' favor, and John is getting antsy now, and he's ready for his next assignment. And this finally comes after Emperor Hirohito announces the surrender of Japan. John, now a bit of an expert on covert airdrops, which will be kind of his career moving forward. He becomes that guy. You call him an advocate, actually. Like, he's really into them. He organizes a supply and rescue operation for prisoners on the Pacific island of Hainan, where he likes to tell this story about how he learned some ethnological facts about Japanese people, and he used them to like trick them into a peaceful transfer. But I mean, the war was over, so it's things could happen. It's not like it's not a dangerous situation, but he likes to talk. So Singlaub is recruited from the OSS as it's in its death knell into the CIA from the get, and he's very happy to go since the OSS had been lousy with naive Pinko sympathizers. And they only had covert ones now in the CIA that they won't find out about for a little while. So by 1951, he's the deputy chief of station in Seoul, working with future APACL, that is Asian People's Anti-Communist League co-founder and president of South Korea, Syngman Rhee, while he's training they become buddies at this point. They're tight, Syngman Rhee and Singlaub. He's training advanced parachuting techniques, proving that he can personally modify a B-26 bomber for CIA drops all over the world. And John goes on to graduate from Army Command and General Staff College in 54, returning then to UCLA to finish his BA in political science by 58. And for some reason, still feeling under-degreed, he also graduates from the Air War College in 1960, not long before a collection of young Nicaraguan leftists pulled together a little something called the Sandinista National Liberation Front, named in honor of the legendary Sandino, who, as I mentioned, was executed by U.S.-backed forces in 1933. But these two groups, even though their fates will be intertwined, Singlaub and the Sandinistas here, the Sandinistas are not on anyone's radar, really, at this point. Even Somoza.
And Syngman Rhee in 1960 drops off the radar because of the, he's deposed that year, I believe.
Yeah, he ends up finding new, halls to haunt in Wackle and so forth.
Yeah.
But yeah, true.
But
yeah.
Anyway, yeah.
So Singlaub's eyes could not be further from Nicaragua in the mid to late 60s. John's in Laos, waging a covert and illegal war for CIA demons Ted Shackley and Tom Kleins as commander of the Special Operations Group for Unconventional Warfare, which John quietly operated out of the U.S. Military Assistance Command in Vietnam. And it's during this time at the SOG that John Singlaub makes the acquaintance of the photogenic soldier Oliver North, as well as the stealthy air smuggler Commander Richard Secord, and Richard's immediate superior officer at the time, Colonel Harry Heine Adderholt. His nickname was Heine. All of whom would take center stage some 2 decades later in the Iran-Contra affair, and Adderholt even would try to recruit Laotian pilots to fly for the Contras in Central America.
And Bill Casey is Singlaub's handler at this point.
Already, okay. Good to know. I wasn't sure when they started to become BFFs.
Yeah.
We'll talk about Bill a bit later, but I do want you to maybe brainstorm with me a little bit about Bill, because Larry McDonald fucking hated him, like thought he was like weak to the commies, and that's kind of weird to me. There's some disconnect there for me, but maybe we can.
That there's some minds, like it's a minefield of, are you just saying this?
Yeah,
to score points with your like Liberty Lobby JBS fringe, or anyway, that's,
or is it fucking cover?
There's things where it seems like they're on the same team, but then there's talk that suggests otherwise.
Yeah.
Here's what I'll say about it. Singlaub and a lot of the other America First type military people, they did indeed swallow their own feelings and sentiments and went to war for their country.
That's right.
On the side that their country had chosen. Larry McDonald didn't serve in a war,
Right.
except for his little JBS war. He, didn't have to do that. In fact, in your last episode, you were talking about him being in the Navy in Iceland and, giving his superiors what for is about them being pink.
Yeah.
It's like easy for you to say, like, how about you put on a parachute and jump out of this airplane and help me get the French resistance going? No? Okay. Well, then, so anyway, in other words, Singlaub may have had, some of these other guys like Singlaub had the ability to be more pragmatic, whereas the McDonald's of the world had the privilege of just being ideologically hidebound.
Damn.
And I'm going to trail off there. I don't know if I'm right about that. It's just a feeling I have. Okay.
There's a reason why Larry wanted John Singlaub on his team. Like, I think John exactly was all those things that Larry was missing. I mean, remember, we're already talking about unbelievably different characters. Like, the last episode on Western Goals was about a murderous dentist and a fucking scam artist,
I know. So weird.
I mean, there's a lot of scams in this episode too, but I mean,
yeah,
the whole thing's kind of a scam, really. But in this one, we get lots and lots of people getting killed. So there you go.
For sure.
So as for Singlaub's superior in Vietnam, the division chief, Ted Shackley, he racked up quite a body count with his Operation Phoenix Death Squad shit around there. And between, I think it's 68 and 72. Although rumor has it he kept going even after the Paris Peace Accords and all that. But estimates range, and these I don't know. I don't really like estimates, especially when I'm feeling uneducated about it. But the estimates that I read range between 20 and 40,000 civilians targeted by the Operation Phoenix program for their presumed proximity to Viet Cong civilian infrastructure. Although many of those, maybe even most of those, were probably just people on the wrong side of someone powerful in the network, and that also included the drug trade. The agency was super proud of Shackley, who now had a reputation of a kind of a problem solver in the anti-communist struggle, so he's sent off to lead the CIA's Latin American division and takes charge of the Contra operation that would eventually overthrow and kill Salvador Allende in Chile. And with Allende in the ground, random people getting thrown out of helicopters, neoliberalism getting born, Shackley thought that his work there was done and headed back to Asia to lead the agency's Far East Division in 1973, where he reportedly resumes his assassination work in Operation Phoenix, but I don't know that for sure. That's the rumor. I don't know if you know anything about that.
No, I'm following along on this part, and it's so far so good. Yeah. So Shackley jumps over the Pacific to Chile and then goes back.
Yeah, he just jumps over to coup and then goes back. Yeah, exactly. Yeah, just a trip and a coup. I think the drug connections that become also part of the later story, I probably begin here, but I'm also really undereducated in that front. So I don't know if you have knowledge of that. Feel free to kick in when you feel drugs.
It's good to say so.
All right.
Rather than mislead your readers or your listeners to the contrary.
Oh yeah, I don't know shit, and I'm not afraid to say it. So
good.
Part 3.
Same.
Do you have anything you want to say before we move on to back to Singlaub in his post?
Oh no, a lot of, to the extent that I have input besides just being the peanut gallery here, it's a little closer to the end. Like I said, I was more focused on the latter 100 pages.
That really helps. That's great, because I was not. So now, with several college degrees under his belt, as John Singlaub enters part 3 of his biopic episode here on The State Between Us, he's got 2 stars on his collar, marking him as a major general. And John Singlaub found himself presiding over U.S. forces in South Korea as their chief of staff. And by this time, John had spent decades soaking in shitty CIA intel tailor-made by the Gellin organization, fitted to Americanist paranoia. So, John feels it. I mean, he speaks it. He rages against the SALT II talks, the kind of, deep proliferation limitation talks, believing that Soviet military might was actually far, far, far more advanced than the U.S. Listeners may remember a picture of a tiny little sort of erectile dysfunctional nuclear weapon that said the U.S. on it. Next to it, a big hardy swinging nuclear weapon with the word USSR on it. This was what was in their mind. Yeah.
It could not have been any more caricatured.
For real. And it's their own propaganda.
Theirs is bigger.
Yes, exactly. That's his argument. So he's getting ignored by this. Like he's a CIA guy. He feels like he has access to the best information, but we know where a lot of that information was coming from, And right. They were a little confused about Soviet military.
And just really quick, where a lot of that was coming from is, as you say, the Galen Org,
the Nazis,
but also the American Security Council.
Yes,
this was something on the right side of the American right, the further reaches. This is something that we talked about with the Robert E. Wood talks that we had, as being one of the people that helped put the American Security Council together.
Yeah,
that was an early version of Western Goals itself, to the extent that they were a blacklisting agency. But also they did some other things that would become parlance for the right, such as teaming up with Americans for Constitutional Action and doing like report cards and grading congressmen and senators and other politicians about where they were voting, what their voting record was on certain things, including increased defense budgets, and also spreading what turned out later to be rumors and baseless rumors about the alleged size of the Soviet member relative to the United States. The missile gap was not nearly as pronounced as we were told, but we were told that because it kept this military industrial complex well feathered.
Maybe it's just an issue of like metric and imperial conversion.
There you go. Yeah. We don't do centimeters here.
Yes, exactly. I think that was a big part of it.
We're doing cubits, bro. Cubits.
They're American. Yeah.
Yeah. Under the belt, we're Cubitmaxxing. I don't know.
That might be the subtitle here. John Singlaub Cubitmaxes the anti-communist struggle.
For years I've anguished, as have most of my fellow officers and most of you, as the United States of America retreated from the front ranks of free world leadership. Korea was a heartbreaking stalemate because we refused to make it our policy to win. The loss of Cuba to communism was a defeat in our hemisphere because we turned the Monroe Doctrine into a meaningless piece of paper. Vietnam was a defeat, not a military defeat. We won, in fact, all the major battles. It was a defeat because, repeating our Korean blunder, we refused to win. The American Canal, which this administration would abandon to Panama, is our first retreat from United States soil because we buckled under the psychological warfare of our own State Department and the pressure from the New York bankers who wanted the American taxpayers to bail them out of their bad loans to the Panamanian dictator. I am, above all things, a realist.
Well, okay, so yeah, John's starting to make a bit of noise. He's trying to get people's attention, and he goes pretty far. And he goes far enough to publicly lambast his own commander-in-chief, Jimmy Carter, for announcing the withdrawal of U.S. forces from Korea. And John believed that the key to defeating communism was unfettered nuclear and conventional weapon proliferation and the old captive nations network that, as in my whatever understanding, was basically pioneered by Reinhard Gehlen, with the Vlasov group and all that kind of thing. But anyway, that's his answer. Carter wants to talk. John wants to kill. So Carter relieved him of command finally in May of 1977, forced him to ultimately resign, actually, after Johnny gave a public lecture at Georgia Tech University railing against his boss's national security approach. Maybe that was a year later. Singlaub was, though, off the leash. It's not a bad thing for him, necessarily, to be a free man here.
It's just amazing. Like, you get these things where you get these rhymes of history, America first, and now we got America first again. You get the Somositas versus the Sandinistas in the 30s, and then you get it again in the 70s. You get MacArthur versus Truman in the 50s, and then 25, 30 years later, you've got Singlaub versus Carter, and it's over Korea as well. I mean, they didn't meet in Midway or whatever, but it's same kind of thing. Pointy-headed, egg-headed liberal bureaucrats that don't understand. We got to do what must be done.
You're just like my dad. Oh.
And they get fired over it, and then they are unleashed into the private sector, and that's unfolding back into what you were saying, sir.
And remember, from the lesson that I took from the ASC was that the private sector is one of those wonderful places where if you couldn't get something done when you were working under the thumb of rules and laws, you can get it done in the private sector. And John Singlaub has a lot of things he wants to get done. And you
want to be a parking cop? You want to write parking tickets? Or do you want to fucking be Dirty Harry up in this bitch?
Yeah, do you want to jump out of a helicopter, shoot some, I don't know, shoot some peasants, I guess. Well, anyway, John spends the next couple of years going on speaking tours and meeting up with all sorts of interesting people, from similarly, quote, muzzled military officers, wealthy right-wingers, and a few people that listeners of The State Between Us are likely familiar with: Larry McDonald, John Reese, and wouldn't you know it, the American Security Council's John Fisher. John co-founds Western Goals with McDonald and Reese, covered at length in the previous free episode. And in 1979, on McDonald's invitation, no less, because as we pointed out, Singlaub had a lot of cred. He was an old hand in the CIA, military hero with, some nice mythology around him. Added to this collection of traits adds to this massive intelligence clearinghouse's legitimacy as they sought new suckers for their big fat fashy scam. And for Singlaub, his status as a co-founder gives him access to figures like Nelson Bunker Hunt, Joseph Coors, these sorts of, monopoly men that would soon become indispensable funding sources for Singlaub's many little Vlasov armies he's going to help set up south of the border. Well, let's say not set up, probably better to say facilitate. Yeah.
It's also around this time that this is the late 70s, and you just sparked this, so now I've got my book out called Lyndon LaRouche and the New American Fascism by Dennis King. I'm not going to try to find the reference to read it, but because his name appears multiple times in this book. But the rumor was that he's in the room with some of these same people you're talking about just now, and sort of there's a real concern that the country's going in the wrong direction, and we need a military coup to get things set right in the country. And he was in the room and probably discussed as being potentially the Smedley Butler of his generation. No, to go from being the Douglas MacArthur to being the Smedley Butler.
Wait, in what sense though? Because Smedley's a complicated man.
Of course, Smedley's a complicated man, and so is MacArthur. He was later the hero of the right wing, but earlier on, he was the guy that suppressed the bonus army, which is why he could not be Smedley Butler, because he was not popular. But
that's right.
Anyway, if we're talking about we need a military takeover, we need a military coup because Carter bad or something Panama Canal, then perhaps a Rambo type like Singlaub could be the guy. We just need to get him to a plastic surgeon and get something done about those gnome ears.
Just the whole thing, really. Yeah. Have you considered covert ops? It's like radio to regular ops film, Be behind the curtain, maybe. Well, anyway, man. His timing, though, to be like meeting all these big shots, co-founding Western Goals and all that, could not be better. And probably that's because it wasn't an accident, because things were happening down south. You see, about 7 years prior, an earthquake had shattered Nicaragua, and the Somoza government was brazenly stealing aid money while the people there suffered. And that little group of lefty smarty pants from back in the day, the Sandinistas, reacted quickly to the crisis left by Somoza's cruelty and indifference, and they'd been developing some popular support ever since the 72 earthquake. So now by 1979, Somoza's war against the people had produced waves of shocking images and press reports in U.S. media, including, significantly, the on-camera execution of ABC television correspondent Bill Stewart by the U.S.'s own creation, the Nicaraguan National Guard. And that was fucked.
Stewart was with this man, an ABC technician, and with a cameraman, an interpreter, and a driver. An ABC technician watched from the truck as Stewart and an interpreter walked toward a group of soldiers just standing around. The ABC cameraman taped this scene. The guard soldier has correspondent Stewart.
You want to get out? No. I'll stay right in here. We'll go back to question. Let him see the picture. There's the camera. Killed him.
Like, I can understand that this would be very shocking to see on ABC. I mean, unbelievably so. So Carter pulled a kind of a hard Yui on Somoza and the National Guard after that. And by the end of 1979, the Sandinistas had established a government in Managua, which the U.S. immediately recognized. Somoza was executed sometime later, I think in exile, actually, outside of Nicaragua. Well, so maybe assassinated, I'm not sure. While the National Guard, now pushed to neighboring countries around Nicaragua, recuperated and reorganized, waiting for that real American, that Rambo type we've been talking about, to take charge of the mess. And Singlaub would be one such American. So John was flabbergasted by Carter's hospitable tone to the Nicaraguan commies, whom he believed were secretly setting up a Soviet staging base on their coast. And what's more, Carter was, in Singlaub's mind, too weak to save even the Iranian Shah from the revolution, and believed that Carter should have done the right thing and authorized more violent and authoritarian measures to keep this friend of American democracy in position. And finally, when the Soviets fell into a state of war in Afghanistan at the end of 79, Singlaub was now sure that the evil empire's ultimate victory was certain unless drastic measures were taken. Alas, as John bemoans in his autobiography, A Hazardous Duty, we seem deeply reluctant to again intervene in liberation struggles in the Third World. The country has come to view anti-terrorism activities and covert intelligence operations with bitter distaste. It sucks, you know?
You know, within a few years of that, the hysteria that these people ginned up, it's like they're hypnotizing themselves with it. It's they're coming, the commies are coming, the UN, the Jew-in is coming to take our guns away. The blue helmets are almost here. Every, military exercise that the United States or NATO or the UN engages in with some country is like, oh no, they're gonna flip the switch and it's gonna go live and we're gonna have a communist beachhead.
Yeah.
And there was I want to say real, but it wasn't real. It was contrived. These people whipped themselves into a frenzy that what was happening in Nicaragua was going to spread to Mexico,
right,
and into Texas,
right,
into the United States. That it was going to turn into an invasion USA, to borrow the Chuck Norris movie title.
No accident there.
Complete hogwash.
Yeah.
It was never going to happen and never could happen.
No,
but these people really did just tell each other that this is going to happen. This is going to happen. You can see it in Pedro del Valle's correspondence with people. Just, these aren't press releases they're putting out to the world. They're just talking amongst themselves with their colleagues in the movement, and they are paranoid AF, man. Anyway, so it's the domino theory, but south of the border. And it's gonna hit the United States anytime now if we don't get down there and stop it.
Yep. Although it's interesting that you bring up that point of this like self-mythologizing frenzy that goes on, because in this little quote I read, he says, what is it? We seem deeply reluctant again to intervene in liberation struggles in the Third World. He himself, in his autobiography, put the word liberation in scare quotes. Which means what? Like, it kind of implies like, yeah, we say liberation. But John is not shy to say he likes authoritarianism. He's not against it, especially elsewhere, So I think... Well,
this is the Western goals. I mean, this is right out of the sound bites of the Western goals stuff you were playing in your earlier episode.
Yeah.
That in the subversion factor, we're going to call our movement liberationist.
Right.
But really, it's just going to be a new set of chains. When it's all said and done.
That's right.
But if we said it's a commie totalitarian nightmare dystopia, no one would fight. So we're going to call it liberation.
Yeah. We'll mention some naming conventions that get pretty fun soon here too when they finally get their shit together.
If it's the Ukrainians or the captive nations people, the Yaroslav Stetsko, the organization, the OUNB, ABN, they can say liberation without the scare quotes.
Yeah, right.
But if it's the, Sandinistas, it gets the scare quotes because they're automatically lying because they're to the left of Genghis Khan.
Okay. Oh, I misread then. That makes much more sense. I was thinking he was referring to liberation struggles like the Contras were the liberators from communist, invasion. So that made it look kind of like self-effacing to me, but actually it makes more sense in the way that you said it, that he's talking about.
Well, I hope so, because I'm just riffing here. I'm just being the hype man. That's all I'm doing.
But, John, he can't, I believe either. I'd believe he would just blatantly put the word liberation in scare quotes in his own book to describe his own operations, as much as I would believe he would do it to describe the enemies, because these guys don't really think these are separate or different operations. Like, they kind of think, or at least they say they think, that they're basically just doing what the Soviets are doing. They're just, they just have to do it better and faster. So I guess he wouldn't be shy either way. But speaking of not being shy, John got the chance to meet Ronald Reagan himself in person during the latter's 1980 presidential campaign, where the Gipper supposedly told Singlaub that much of the governor's speech material during his campaign came from John. That's what John says. Again, who fucking knows? Wow. But John says that the Reagan told him this, and John was proud to respond to him, hopefully, I think, while giving him the full Roman wrist grip kind of handshake.
You're probably the only national politician who really understands what I'm talking about.
Which, if happened, was probably true, despite Reagan later kind of trying to deny it all in 86, 87, but we're not really there.
Now, chop down this cherry tree for me. Yes, sir.
Exactly.
Yeah. It just sounds like really... Yeah, no.
That kind of relationship was there. They did kind of feel this way, I think, about each other anyway.
Yeah, no, I don't think so. Okay, this is just my opinion. I'll digress just for a moment into the Larry McDonald world because
help me out here.
I was on vacation last week, and by vacation I mean I'm looking at old dead white guys' papers. So Larry, my collection of Larry McDonald papers out of Emory University in Georgia. Marjorie Taylor Greene, the soon-to-be gone Congress critter.
She's resigning.
I finally heard it. It's like that's the same district as Larry McDonald. Same one. Oh
no!
Does it make sense?
Oh damn!
Jewish space lasers. I mean, come on. Where have I heard this before?
Oh, that blew my mind. Yeah. Wow. Well, way to make a connection there.
Right. Well, anyway,
so strange.
His papers, Emory University, and so there's this one little exchange. He's writing to a wealthy heiress who is in charge of the fortune that her husband had left. The name of said fortune, I do not recall. However, Larry McDonald is trying to raise money for Western goals, and he's reaching out to this woman, this heiress, about forking over some greenbacks. And he's criticizing Ronald Reagan in the letter, and he's kind of feeling her out with this. Like testing the waters. How do you feel? And she's like, you know what? I'm not giving you any money. I'm a big fan of Reagan. We needed somebody like him for a long time. This is a 81, right? So Reagan had just gotten into office, and everybody's on Team Reagan,
right?
But not everybody totally agrees with them on everything.
Yeah.
So she writes him back saying, "Hey, I don't like what you said about the Gipper. Why don't you take a flying at a rolling donut and leave me alone?" So he writes back and gives her this whole freaking essay, reply guy, big time, not getting into the Roman Empire, but, talking about him being, down with trilateral, this and that, and just being kind of a globalist, being an internationalist. I'm going to just skip over the details of
McDonald?
But basically, he's like, McDonald is trashing Reagan, saying, "Look, I'm on Team Reagan too, but there are some things about him that are concerning. He's a little bit, today we would say globalist, but that's not what he said. But he did say internationalist, had an internationalist bent, and here's all the reasons why." And he's like, I'm not saying throw him out. I'm just saying, he's the best we've had, but he's not necessarily the best we could have. And so, anyway, back to what you're saying, Singlaub's like, you're just the best politician since sliced bread. You get it.
You get me. You get me. Yeah, you think he was like glazing him up.
Yes. Yes, for a purpose. Okay. You're publicly supporting each other, but secretly there's still the, this is why the New World Order had to kill Larry McDonald in the plane crash, because he was, he was onto them, Reagan, the first and most, really before today, the hellscape we live in now. Yeah. Ronald Reagan was at the time, and for many years after, the most identifiably pro-fascist president that we had ever had, as long as the term had existed. And the point is, it's still never enough for certain people. Yeah. Yeah. And I'm going to put Singlaub in the camp of, he would say things like that publicly, but I bet you underneath it, he had a little more nuanced opinion. Yeah. No, I think Reagan is useful, but he's not Jesus.
Yeah. Well, sure. I think you must be right about that, because like, why would this dude, respond? He has a lot of like whatever fancy friends around now because of his job, but he's not like talking about actors that he hung out with. I don't think he's somebody that would respect the soft hands of a Hollywood elite, but who knows? Yeah. But John's notoriety, anyway, for his part as an anti-communist war hawk and his important political connections score him an invite to Perth after the 1980 election to speak to the Asian People's Anti-Communist League. I'm a little bit uncomfortable with this bit, because I'm not entirely sure that's why they invited him. That's definitely part of like what we say about it, but he has friends who are at this time already ASC, American Security Council big shots and stuff. Mm-hmm. I've got to imagine it's more of that kind of connection that probably got him out there, not just because he was loud or something, a new Reagan, but he does.
No, they had gone. Singlaub and some other people affiliated with the Coalition for Peace Through Strength. Oh, yeah. Which was the American Security Council's kind of side project, which is, still a slogan. Remember the rhyming of history again, the lore dump.
Yeah, I talked a bit about that in that episode, about it maybe even going back to Neville Chamberlain and then passing through America First that way. But that's kind of my personal genealogy.
Yeah, and the Chamberlains are that name became synonymous with being a little surrender monkey and and appeasement and cowardice or whatever. But really, it was like, no, there was a faction in the British elite, just like in the American elite, that was wanting to work with Time Magazine's Man of the Year, Adolf Hitler, right up until the declarations of war started. So that was true in the United States. It was true in Britain. Yes. And it wasn't because he was some lily-livered whatever that Chamberlain was talking about peace in our time. Yeah. It was like, no, we're on the same team, bro. Or we're hope to be. Anyway, you were saying.
Nah, yeah.
Chamberlain.
Well, no, just that really. That it's got that genealogy that's very, very clean, and it makes sense that these people would end up with it. But Coalition for Peace Through Strength. Yeah, I remember what my tangent of a tangent, excuse me. They went on a trip to Guatemala and Honduras, I believe, Central America, Singlaub and some other people in like 78, 79. No, I think that maybe that was 80 though, because
might have been 80
because it's kind of tied to this. It's part of this process.
Yeah. Okay. It was part of during the campaign for president.
That makes sense. That makes sense, because
they're like going down there meeting with these death squad people saying, "Hey, wink, wink."
Yes.
And I think the quote is pretty close. It's like, Ronald Reagan recognizes that a lot of dirty work needs to be done down here.
I have that quote exactly written down.
Okay,
here.
Good.
Yeah. Well, yeah. I'm just going to read what I wrote. How about that? And you'll see.
How about that? I'm sorry for stealing your thunder.
Don't be. You don't have a script in front of you. You don't know what's going on. This is the job. You got it. You got it right.
Boy.
Yeah. Thank you. Yeah, this is hype. I do like this. So So John goes to Perth, right, to speak to the Asian People's Anti-Communist League, APACL. At that point, they had established what the World Anti-Communist League back in '66. So they've been around for a minute. They're doing well. When Singlaub joined his old buddy, former President Syngman Rhee, there to talk about how his new buddy, American President Ronald Reagan, really understands. That was some of the speeches there. I think he's also kind of trying to make policy as he speaks it, though. Talks a lot about, nukes and deep state fuckery, that kind of thing. The sweet stuff. So Singlaub, he got cozy with American Security Council's John Fisher. Fisher, if anybody doesn't remember, is the ex-FBI guy who led the American Security Council initially for Robert Wood and Robert McCormick, the two Bobs, and built up from the files of, wasn't Skousen, sorry, it was
Harry Young's.
Harry Young, thank you.
Yeah.
Harry
Young
Young's
worked with Goebbels and anyway.
Yes, exactly. Yeah. So I mean, yes.
The guy that did the FBI G-Men blood transfusion at Wewelsburg Castle or whatever the fuck it was.
Yeah, I already forgot about that. Yeah, he was like 99% G-Man. Yes.
Yeah, dude.
These people are freaks. But okay, so Singlaub, wanted to get involved in the ASC, or they asked Singlaub to get involved in the ASC, whichever. Either way, they were nice enough to host his retirement luncheon, his forced retirement luncheon back in '79. So he's back now here in '80 doing speaking events for Fisher and the ASC. I know that Fisher was also already working closely at that point with another good friend of Singlaub's that Fisher had hired for his intelligence credentials, and that's Danny O. Graham, who had done some fuckery in Saigon for the Defense Intelligence Agency back in the day, resigning under Ford in protest of his détente policies. So they're, two peas in a pod there. So that winter, John Singlaub takes a trip, like you mentioned, to Central America with Graham to spread the Reagan gospel to officials in El Salvador and Guatemala, who reported that Singlaub and Graham's message was that this is the quote right here.
Mr. Reagan recognized that a good deal of dirty work has to be done.
That's what he said. So a couple weeks after their visit, Guatemala experiences a sudden and marked upswing in death squad atrocities. No coincidence there. So John's quickly becoming a favorite son of the World Anti-Communist League. John's new best friend, supposedly maybe frenemy, Ronald Reagan, and his administration figure out a fun way around the roadblocks set up by Carter and the post-Frank Church milieu called presidential findings. This is the technique that they're using. I don't really understand it, but it seems like it kind of functions as an executive order that allows backdoor funding in some ways that would no longer be legally funded by Congress. I don't get it. It's some fuckery. At any rate, it resulted in a cool $19 million being shipped off to the Contras, and who are now kind of waiting in the wings, right outside the border. Very much like William Walker's mercenaries back in the 19th century when he tried to retake Nicaragua. They were doing the same thing. He had his bandits on the border waiting for like some support and to go in to take it for American capitalism. So Singlaub is joining his new World Anti-Communist family at their 1981 conference in Taipei, and according to John, the APACL boys of WACL were, complaining a lot about unwelcome attention from because of their US, UK, and Mexican chapters. Longtime listeners of this show and my previous show probably know what I'm talking about, but those who don't, I'm talking about people like Roger Pearson, who at the time was heading the US chapter. He's the British born eugenicist, Nordic neo-Nazi, big pioneer fund dude. He's letting all sorts of kooks into their conferences, and they also had in Mexico these sedevacantist Nazis in Mexico called Los Tecos. Yeah, one of Keith's favorite topics there. These guys are they're not believing the Pope, and they're hitting the elders of Zion pretty hard, to the point when they're actually alienating reactionary stalwart member organizations like Tradition, Family, and Property. So someone had to clean up, and the gray eminences of the League thought that John Singlaub was their man.
Now, pause real quick.
Pause.
In the McDonald Papers, he's got all this founding documents of, from the very beginning of the Council for National Policy.
Right. Yeah.
And I was looking through those when I was on my vacation and checking some of that stuff against the Moral Majority archives. I think they're out of Liberty University. It's to Jerry Falwell. You can get a lot of actual digital collection stuff from that website. But Howard Phillips, a guy that would later be in the United States Council for World Freedom.
Oh yeah, he's the conservative caucus dude.
Conservative caucus, and that word meant, okay, this is we're to the right of Reagan.
Yeah.
He had to sell out to become the president, and we are conservatives as opposed to whatever this is. We'll take it, we'll use it. Reagan Revolution, we're all for it.
Yeah.
Because it's a 1st and 10 for us, So anyway, they are planning in 81, and they're giving the minutes for it and everything. Basically, we're going to Taiwan. We're going to get a global anti-communist group together, and he's talking about it in the press release as if something like that doesn't already exist.
Yes.
Wacko.
Yeah.
But it's like it's still kind of hot, so they don't want to say it out loud what it is.
Yeah.
But the Council for National Policy, when they talk about we got the story is we got a $20,000 loan from the KMT to get the U.S. Council for World Freedom started. Sure, that's fine. That checks out. But there was a visit that happened, and it was I'm going to say, shadow foreign policy apparatus of Larry McDonald, because he was the CNP's foreign relations guy.
Okay.
Right?
Yeah.
The CNP delegation. I'm talking Howard Phillips, Phyllis Schlafly, the guys that were with Christian Voice, a Mooney outfit. That's a group we haven't talked about very much.
Terrified.
Robert Grant of Christian Voice, that was a Mooney front.
Yep.
And Gary Jarman. These were Moonies which is Unification Church. These were guys that were part of the early versions of the Reverend Moon's media empire. They were all part of this. So these guys all go to Taipei, come back with the bag, and start United States Council for World Freedom with it.
Exactly.
Want to put a finer point on it. If you look through those, I sent you all that stuff, right?
Oh man,
it's a pain. But yeah,
it's I sadly I had some primary for this episode, but I was mostly reading the secondary source books.
That's okay. That's what you got me for.
Yeah,
it's all good.
Exactly. Yeah. So they're sort of his buddies are kind of charging him with the task of denazifying Wackle. But I just wanted to point out before we talk about the founding of the U.S. Council for World Freedom that as I was reading an ABN bulletin, speaking of primaries, there's one right there, that were saying that like fucking Yaroslava Stetsko was at that conference. Like they're talking about denazification in front of a fucking Nazi, Like that's the joke here.
Fucking amazing. It really is.
Yes. So Singlaub, like you said, heads back to the U.S. with $20,000 worth of paper from his time there, and creates the United States Council for World Freedom on November 22nd, 1981, in the conference hall of the Mountain Shadow Resort Inn in Phoenix, Arizona.
November 22nd, bro.
Yes, right?
Boom, bam, bam. It's a little too on the nose.
Yes.
Anyway, go ahead.
Yes, indeed. Well, here's what I think was even more on the nose, was that it was in Phoenix, Arizona, which is an interesting choice of cities. No, considering he worked on the Phoenix Project, which kind of now he's reviving, right? Here in Phoenix.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
Nuts.
I don't know if that's the reason that some of these people located to there, but they did.
They did. Yeah, I don't know. These harmonies in history. Eerie, like 007, the flight, Larry McDonald's flight. I told you it's a magical world. I warned you at the start of this program. This is a story of mystical times. So Little Johnny's now heading the U.S. chapter of the World Anti-Communist League with the ASC guy, former DIA buddy, the one he went to Guatemala with, Daniel Graham, acting as vice chairman. Yeah. And he sets about, allegedly, purging the ranks of the Nazi fringe, placing instead folks like John Fisher and conservative caucus chairman Howard Phillips, who you mentioned here, on its advisory board. And John is chuffed that, quote,
Our board included a number of mainstream conservative academics and nationally known attorneys.
Right? That said, the techos were still there. Like they lost their status, but the people are still around. Like the fucking professor from where was it? Guadalajara is still speaking. Like all.
They had reorganized as a group called Fedal.
Yep. Yeah.
The Federation of Democratic Anti-Communist Latin American States, which I think is what Fedal translates to. But it was just a reorganization of the CAL group that had started 10 years earlier. And he brags, Singlaub, in his book, that they had gotten, because they have Jewish friends, so they gotten the Anti-Defamation League of B'nai B'rith to come in and sort of like do like a blessing over it and pronounce the whole thing as kosher or whatever.
Bizarre.
Yeah.
I've got to wonder because in the background here, like there's a background story going on that, I'll mention in a bit, but keep in mind that there's, there's a lot of parallels to this time and the one we're living through right now. I mean, the Israeli occupation of Lebanon, of Gaza, plays a part in what's going on in the background here as like forces are combining. It's very eerie how much things have not
and a lot
changed.
of Latin American ostensible Nazis or whatever are just fine buying all kinds of guns from the Israelis.
Yep.
And the more you talk about it, the more anti-Semitic you're going to sound. So I'm going to move on. But he did get the ADL to give a blessing and say, that's actually a Transnistria cavalry salute.
Exactly. Yeah, exactly. It's crazy. It's insane, really.
We're a long ways from the days of Forster and Epstein writing dossiers about the John Birch Society and
this is still the time of Roy Cohn. I mean, I think he's still around, right? When did he die?
Yeah, exactly.
Okay, yeah. So
not quite yet, but yeah.
85 maybe? I'm not sure if he's winged it through Iran-Contra even.
I think it was 86, but don't
86.
quote me.
Okay. All right. Well, anyway.
Maybe that's just because that's when he was 86. I don't know.
Maybe. This is still his world.
Roy.
This is still his world anyway. That's my point.
Yeah.
Also, like the Canadian chapter was apparently completely Nazi, but I'm going to maybe talk a little about that next month. I got some documents from a patron, so I want to...
Patrick Walsh?
I think it's on the docket. Yeah, I think Patrick's on the docket.
The Canadian... Anyway, good. Send me what you got, man. I'm curious.
Okay.
Anyway, please moving on, because I'm going to keep you here all night.
No, that's all right. That's all right. I got nowhere to be. So, I would say that it's worth pointing out, too, that even John, who talks about how he denazified Wackel, he himself points out that he was still denazifying Wackel in 1984. So he started the process, in 81? Right. So by his own admission, there was like at least enough Nazis to fill up 3 years of denazification, supposedly. Anyway,
a lot of weeds to be pulled. Yeah.
Yeah. Right. Especially if you're not pulling them. So nevertheless, when Singlaub would get asked by press about Wackel's fascist bent, Singlaub would proudly respond that he personally saw to it. There's no problem anymore. And then if that same reporter would ask him about Wackel supporting death squads, Singlaub would proudly beg the editor to redact the question, which we have evidence of. So while Singlaub was trying to rein in the Wackel Hydra, CIA Bill Casey was in Argentina with a bunch of former members of the Nicaraguan National Guard who were learning how to fight a dirty war, trained by TFP aligned, that's Tradition Family Property aligned Contras under General Leopoldo Galtieri. Ironically, John's buddy Larry McDonald, fellow Western Goals founder, I mentioned this already publicly, hated Bill Casey, but that's insane. The more I talk to you about it, the more I think all of it's a fucking smokescreen. But that's how you get when you read this shit.
Bill Casey helped set up the stay behind nets that would become Gladio later.
He's like the perfect anti-communist.
And Larry McDonald's Western Goals and everything was like a total Le Cercle liaison.
Right.
So, which is like Gladio. So like, what's
your problem, dude? Yeah. I can't believe it somehow.
He's glazing the Liberty Lobby in his private correspondence. And
Bill Casey is?
No, Larry McDonald.
Oh, well, okay.
And I don't have Bill Casey's papers. Nobody does.
That
but
would be amazing.
It's like the Liberty Lobby was Anyway, I'm going to stop. It's kayfabe. That's the way I
Okay.
feel about it. No
I feel
one
you.
really knows.
I do.
Moving
I'm feeling more and more the more I think about this, the more I read about these people, the more I think the difference between like a Nazi fascist and a conservative is just tact and manners. Like that's kind of the wall holding them from this.
Here's a simple theory. Larry has got people writing him all the time because they're big time John Birch Society fans, and they, for whatever reason, don't like Bill Casey. So in order to keep their checks coming, Larry McDonald has to say, "Yeah, I don't like Bill Casey. He's part of the conspiracy," in public, and then in private, it's like, "All right, yeah, are we bombing that subway in Italy or what?" You know?
Right.
Anyway,
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Okay.
All
right. So these newly trained National Guard forces now, who have been calling themselves up to that point the 15th of September Legion, but they were recognized as a terrorist organization under that name, so they are renamed to the Nicaraguan Democratic Force. Huh? That sounds good.
Sounds like some 80s after school TV cartoons.
Nicaraguan
Freedom
Democratic
Force.
Yes.
Yeah.
With samosa. All right, so provided with a relatively lame CIA training manual, I flipped through it, the one that they use. It's not as fun as I was hoping. There's kind of a lot of self-mythologizing going on. I don't know if you're supposed to read between the lines, but it's lame. So tactically, the Nicaraguan Democratic Force, the NDF, was supposed to be less about artillery shells on villages and more about, this is what the manual asks them to do, about winning the hearts and minds of the common people, which the NDF would dutifully try to access via the people's skulls and rib cages. Because there's also chapters in that book. There's also chapters in that book that talk about what happens if they don't like you. You know?
How do we get to the mind? Is you have to crack open the skull first.
Yeah.
That's where the mind. It's inside there.
You have to peel back the face. You'll see.
So shit.
They're so fucking these people. So according to John, Bill Casey's mission in Argentina was more or less John's idea, but that's according to John. Singlaub was all over the administration. He's giving speeches, he's hosting dinners, he's hobnobbing with elite industrial families. Western Goals is openly raising money to fund Contras in Nicaragua from about 83. A Contra Legion 2,000 strong even named themselves the Larry McDonald Task Force to honor the organization's co-founder.
Whoa.
After he was blown out of the sky
crap.
by the New World Order. So it's crazy, no? And it's not even task force. Like that's the part that really creeps me out. Task force. It's like an office. In 1983, it's also kind of a big year for Western Goals for another reason. That's the year that the kind of press scandal in California erupts with the LAPD, where investigators discovered that they were deeply entwined with Western Goals, targeting dissidents based on their info, moving, I think it was like hundreds of thousands of dollars between the LAPD and Western Goals. And despite public interest and outrage at the corruption, little really happened with any of that beyond a suspension of the detective at the head of the whole thing, as America went on doing what it does best, forgetting anything never happened. And Western Goals, though, they had bigger scandals to get to. So I guess this was a blip for them.
And they also had people pretty much typing in a garage around the clock. They had smuggled out a bunch of paper files from the defunct, shuttered by the Justice Department, Red Squad of the LAPD. And you don't want to let all that data go to waste. So they kind of did a little mini Operation Paperclip with an early version of the internet, whereby these typists were transcribing the documents out of the Red Squad files into, over kind of a computer network to Western Goals offices on the other side of the country. Also a no-no.
You cadets did some sloppy work, some damn sloppy work.
That's part of the whole scandal. It's just crazy town. So this is the American Security Council kind of stuff that they used to do, all of these files had accumulated. Nowadays, we just carry a little control file around in our pockets with us. It's called a smartphone.
Yes.
But back in the day, you had to do it like the old-fashioned way.
They had fucking cards. Maybe not in 83, but, not long ago.
Yeah.
My dad once shut down the emergency system of White Plains, New York by putting the wrong card in. And he said a metal chunk, a sound of heavy metal clacking with other heavy metal followed by a red light that went off and an alarm sounding throughout a facility because the card was slightly out of order. In like
and then all the buildings fall down to the,
yes, everything
to the soundtrack
collapses.
of the Pixies' "Where's My Mind." Right?
Well, too early for that. This was 70s, I think. But yeah. So, where were we? Western Goals. Yeah, great. Okay, well, this is that was part 3. We have now at part 4 of 5. We're getting there really quickly. Part 4 is quite short, and it all.
Well, we'll see
place.
what we can do.
We'll see what we can do about that. Yeah. So probably a lot.
Can I make a perception check real quick?
Absolutely. Roll that shit.
Okay. That's a 14.
That's pretty good.
All right.
No, not great.
Yeah.
What's
Anyway,
your modifier?
What do I see? You know. Oh, that is with the modifier. I'm sorry.
Oh, okay. Thanks.
So what do I see here in chapter 4?
You're a good player, factoring the modifier in already. I appreciate that. So, well, what you see in 83 here is that John is out there getting together with his old secret war buddy from the Laos front, Laotian, front, General Harry Heine Aderholt, to form an organization of ex-Special Forces soldiers, paratroopers, and pilots called Refugee Relief International. This I like. I like this story because it's another, one of these many scams that Western goals-related people get involved in. The organization threw lavish luncheons with the help of industrial and political bigwigs, charging hundreds of dollars a plate and subjecting everyone to the special Western Goals brand of like John Birch meets Reinhard Galen sort of paranoid propaganda. But despite the name of the Refugee Relief International, of the hundreds of thousands, maybe millions even, that the organization gathered, like a percent of it actually went to some refugee support activities or supplies. That is to say, unless you see U.S. trained Contra death squads who peel people's faces off in front of their own kids, as a matter of fact, as refugees, which I think they did. So maybe it's not a scam. They just didn't agree on what the word refugee meant, So using Reagan's fun loopholes, the CIA manages to plant explosive mines at the Puerto Corinto, Puerto Sandino, and El Bluff harbors in Nicaragua. This is once again the U.S. covertly mining Nicaragua's waterways. But
it rhymes.
It does. They just keep doing the same thing and hoping for a different response. That's a definition of something, but I can't remember what. But this time, at least, nobody gets executed. At least no Americans get executed. Sorry, let me qualify that. Instead, a press expose brings the whole operation to light, and the public, for a little while anyway, loses their shit a bit over it. Even Barry Goldwater is annoyed at this. So to do damage control, yeah, right? One of the Contra leaders is awoken at 2 a.m. by the insistent knocking of CIA agents with pre-written press statement in hand and inform him that actually he was the one who mined the ports. And by the way, he's on in 5. They're quick, these guys. So that was spring of 84. The Reagan administration decides to lie low a little bit, but not really slow down. So it's more like they just start crawling on their bellies, like commandos. They turn into proper commandos. So from this point on, the private connections of Western goals seem to take on a renewed importance. Singlaub is raising funds in Korea, Taiwan, Israel, letting his former subordinate, the handsome Oliver North, be his like White House, connection. And also, I think, handle some of the scammier aspects of the whole arrangement, while Singlaub, well, scammy is not the word, maybe drug lord connected aspects of the arrangement.
No, scammy is the word.
Okay.
They had
seems soft
with Oliver North and Richard Secord.
Yep.
And a guy named Hakim Alfred, something Hakim. Al Hakim, an expat Iranian guy that they'd started something with some other people called the Enterprise. And this is what gets you into your Iran-Contra stuff. And it was basically like,
that's right,
their own little constellation of shell companies through which they were trying to cover their tracks for raising money through all kinds of different means for the Contras. And just like with refugee what'd you call it, Relief International?
Yeah, Refugee Relief International. Yeah.
A lot of skim.
Oh man, and not even always on the U.S.'s favor either. I mean, like the Iranians got a fair bunch of missiles for very few hostage. for instance.
Yeah, and when Richard Secord, got charged, I mean, he got a slap on the wrist, but
yeah,
the part of the charges against him later as part of the Iran-Contra stuff was, he had skimmed off a lot of money that rightfully belonged to the United States.
yeah,
So
yeah.
yes, like you said, not always to the benefit of Uncle Sam. Sometimes, yeah.
Sometimes they got taken. I think, we're not going to talk at length about Iran-Contra. I kind of mentioned that. If you want to learn
thank
about
goodness.
it, and
Oh
you
my
should,
God.
yes, right. You should learn about this, but this is not the episode, especially not this late in the episode. That would be insane.
And I just real quick, I was listening to a YouTube video just to because this is 2025 and reading books is hard. So
that's true.
Listening to a YouTube video, and it was a history professor, and he's doing a whole, I think it's called the Wall of Crazy Iran-Contra.
That's a great video.
He was talking about what an obscure and complicated and nuanced and multi-layered, complicated thing the whole Iran-Contra thing is, and it's so intimidating for people to learn about it. But so thank God we're not really going to get that deep into it. You were saying, sir, go ahead.
Actually, I recommend that video. I mean, there's some points that I feel like, might have been a little more pointed, but that's not on me because he did me a huge favor. Like there's better stuff out there for that. But in general, when I talk about it more to myself, it kind of gets less and less and less complicated. It's mostly like different sources of money and or weapons going to the Contras through CIA connects and also also Israeli intelligence connects, also some weirdos and some fictional like revolutionary group in Iran waiting to take back control. Like there's a lot of people telling lies, being scammed, skimming off the top, a lot of surplus disappearing.
Khashoggi.
Yeah. And then also there's the drug element, which I'm undereducated on, but that's also contributing to all of this. Although I have a little bit about that pretty soon here.
Yeah.
But so that's all going on. Things are, as far as these Western Goals types are concerned, they're on top of the world. They've got international connections. That guy fucking Adderholt is looking to find Laotian pilots to fly for the Contras. I mean, everything's getting funneled in here. And Singlaub is sort of the public-facing fundraiser and networker of this process.
Yes.
He's also whipping up the U.S. ruling class into shape by wielding the goodwill that the now dead Larry McDonald had built up in the organization. John Singlaub is reminding everyone, Wackel included, that under his command, and here's a quote,
"Our struggle with communism is not a spectator sport. We have opted for a course of action which calls for the provision of support and assistance to those who are actively resisting Soviet-supported intrusion into Africa, Asia, and North Africa."
It's not a spectator sport, people. It's time to get your hands dirty. So, Wackel, full steam ahead on the Contra mission. You got people like Yaroslava Stetsko declaring it as the singular purpose of the League. Anti-communist Contra forces in 7 different countries: Angola, Mozambique, Ethiopia, Laos, Cambodia, Vietnam, Afghanistan. They're all slobbering over the windfall that they would receive if their comrades in Nicaragua are victorious. They're already writing out their own wish lists for their big-eared Special Forces Santa Claus John there, who starts leading seminars on guerrilla resistance at Wackel get-togethers. And as the Andersons write in their 1986 Exposé Inside the League,
the resistance movement seminars were certainly the most important development in the genesis of the, quote, New League in San Diego. Operated by a handful of men, mostly retired American military or intelligence officers, the seminars marked the beginning of a new role for the League. This wasn't a bunch of aging Ukrainian fascists gathered around a table railing about the Soviets. It was a gathering of unconventional warfare experts meeting with guerrilla leaders actively engaged in just such warfare.
So this is the renaissance of the League. It's kind of there. They're about to hit, I guess, a peak, really. And also, maybe you could help me out here. So you got your fucking Kleins, but you also got your fucking Klein. And the Nicaragua seminar was led by Ray Klein when they started doing this. And he's fucking everywhere. And I don't know. Do you want to give a couple words about him? Because
he was the military attaché for the Republic of China, Taiwan. He was really helped Taiwan get going when the Chinese Civil War ended in a resounding defeat for the man who lost China, Chiang Kai-shek. Just for
Right.
those keeping score at home, that's who lost China, that guy. Okay, anyway, he helped them kind of pick up the pieces in Taiwan when they lost, and helped them start their political warfare cadres academy in Pitao, Taiwan, in around 54, around the time that APACL started. And, was involved in his own way in a lot of the stuff involving WACL, and especially in the eastern, parts of the globe. But he was alleged to have been part of something along with Singlaub and Kleins and Shackley and Secord and all of these other guys that was called the Secret Team. And this became kind of a meme that really captivated the public's imagination or attention in the 80s. And Ray Klein was a big part of this. And this, briefly is a result of a lawsuit brought by something called the Christic Institute.
Yeah.
Which is this kind of new age. It was this new age Catholic kind of group, and its main, their version of Singlaub, the spokesperson, the one that was out in the public, was a guy named Daniel Sheehan, who is still around to this day, barely. But they had brought a lawsuit against the government, against Singlaub, against USCWF, and basically they had alleged that this secret little cadre, this little secret group, was behind all of the things, from JFK to drug smuggling to what's going on with the Contras secret war in Latin America, and and it was kind of this grand unifying conspiracy theory.
Yeah.
That I'm going to call a limited hangout conceptually.
Oh, yeah? You're going that far with it, huh? I've always been curious because it sounds suspicious. It's like half true, half weird. It's hitting those buttons.
I was trying to find the guy that coined the term was a guy named Fletcher Prouty, and he had a book that I think came out in 1970 called The Secret Team, and it was about the CIA running the world basically. And, people that reviewed it at the time, and I have not gotten to read, I was trying to find a copy online, and they've done a good job of keeping it under wraps. So I'm going to have to order a hard copy of it. But, a lot of the reviews were like, he's onto something, but he goes too far with it. And I don't know how much I trust people that just review books or whatever, but there was some kind of charges there that it was a little too grandiose, and then at the same time, just a little too pat, a little too facile. So, but he's the guy that kind of coined the term. And so the Christic Institute took that and revived it and ran with it. And it colored so much of the way that these things were covered in the 80s. I mean, the most famous example, in my opinion, being a book by Peter Dale Scott, Jonathan Marshall, and Jane Hunter called The Iran-Contra Connection, Secret Teams and Covert Operations in Central America. And it was like, Peter Dale Scott, you're the guy that came up with the term deep politics. You don't need to just adopt some Johnny-come-lately slogan about this secret team. You invented the whole thing without having to call it that. Why are you? Don't be trendy. Anyway, the problem with the secret team theory is that it just makes it sound like it's this little group that they're just way out there in left field and they're out of control and nobody can do anything about it. And they're just secretly running the world and they've just gone rogue. As if that were possible, like they do know how to kill people in the deep state. They're working for somebody, So I'm just not a big fan of the whole concept of the secret team. But basically, it's the OSS China cowboys from World War II.
Yeah,
that have been these drug dealing, Murder Inc. assassination squads and death squad training people all through all the decades, and they just they're just out of control and no one can stop them. And so anyway, Ray Klein was one of those guys, and now I got to do my little dig at the secret team theory. The end.
Well, no, I'm glad for it because I think also these guys benefit in a way from that perspective.
Oh yeah, we're talking about secret team, and it's like, who likes that? George George Bush.
Yeah.
It's like, oh yeah, talk about the secret team all day. Let's go. Just leave me out of it.
George fucking Bush. I didn't put his name in this because I didn't want to open that can. But man, he's around.
His name doesn't appear in a whole lot of this stuff. His name barely appears in Inside the League.
You're right.
You know,
you're right.
The bullet that hit Reagan in the chest was, from my understanding, okay, it was supposed to have exploded.
Really?
And it did not. Anyway, Bush was president from 1981 till sometime in the 90s.
Are you saying, no, right, nice. Are you saying that George Bush wanted to impress Jodie Foster?
Yeah. Yeah,
Well,
I'm not going to
wouldn't?
I'm going to get way too annoyed if I start talking about this. They were, you know, some of the Bushes were having dinner with the guy that did the shooting the night before. Like, why? And
it's so weird. I'm not ready.
Alexander Haig is the chief of staff, and he's just like, "Yep, I'm president now for a minute," you know. And his Alzheimer's just got worse from there on out, and we had a 12-year reign of Bush.
His Alzheimer's got worse as this fucking story got closer.
Also convenient.
Yeah, very convenient. That's the word I'm looking for.
Yeah.
Convenient.
Right.
So I guess
my fellow Americans, I am out to lunch.
Yes. Yeah. Because, you know, there was efforts to make that paper trail, you know, to the commander in chief. A lot of them fell short, but I would say, if nothing else, there is certainly a blood trail. And that is what takes us to our final part 5.
Right.
So, Ronald Reagan authorizes something called Operation Elephant Herd back in the summer of '83 in order to bypass legal barriers to materially aiding the Contras beyond like a certain limit at that point. So, to meet the requirements of Elephant Herd, the Pentagon found themselves about $12 million shy. So, the CIA generously, we'll say, donates free equipment that happens to add up to about $12 million. It's all listed as surplus equipment, so it doesn't register as having a cost when they do their fun accounting. So in 1984, Elephant Herd comes crashing down along with some American pilots. On September 1st of that year, light Cessna aircraft refitted with rocket launchers attack what they believe to be the Sandinista military training school in Nicaragua. I think it was. I don't really know if it was or not, but they got some resistance. So accompanying them was a helicopter, which takes a hit and crashes into the country. This action, led by Singlaub's old friend Oliver North, sends Western goals into an immediate fundraising effort to buy a new helicopter, but more importantly, an Alabama National Guardsman and American pilot from Memphis are both pulled dead from the wreckage, along with at least one roasted Contra. When the Washington Post breaks the story, additional journalism from local outfits verifies the Alabaman as Dana Parker, whom local police claimed was, quote, this is the chief talking, was, quote, a paid assassin who had killed 3 Cuban government officials, but then he says, and went to kill a third but got wasted. So make what you want out of that quote. But what is known is that Parker was the commander of the 1st Detachment A Company of the 20th Special Forces Group, which had been tied very closely to the CIA since apparently the Bay of Pigs. I don't know much beyond that. The CIA does a press offensive. They claim that these guys are just redneck patriots on a personal mission of solidarity for the free market Contras. I'm interested in this 20th Special Forces group. This is some suspicious ass shit for sure. The pilot was apparently like lying. The Memphis pilot, he was telling people different stories about his life. His family, his wife didn't know what he was doing. He'd fly off all the time, say he was going to like Vegas, but it was probably not.
Is this the civilian material assistance people? Is that where they come in with all this?
They had a different name though. They weren't called that. They had some fun like group name. Maybe that was.
Oh yeah, American Friends of Latin America.
Is that it?
There was a group called the American Friends of Latin America that was headed up by Woody Jenkins, who was
Woody Jenkins,
executive director of the Council for National Policy.
That's right.
So
yeah. Oh man.
And so it's like you think they're NPCs or they're like a rival party, but in fact they're actually hirelings that are working for the party.
Uh-huh.
The whole.
Uh-huh.
Yeah.
What do you know about this story? About this? So there's the story that this arms dealer that worked closely with Singlaub named Barbara Studley, who I think is legitimately an arms dealer.
Yeah.
So she's working with this Honduran outfit that's known to the Contras as the Arms Supermarket, to which the CIA had donated reportedly about $14 million to get started. Now, Barbara claimed later, I think when she was being tried, I might be wrong about that. I might be a reporter. I'm mixing some things up, maybe. But Barbara Studley had claimed that Singlaub had told her that the supermarket was funded by drug money. And Singlaub said that he knew that because Oliver North had told him during a briefing. So I don't know. What do you think about that story? It's like third person information.
If they're even like saying it was drugs, then it was like, you always have to just assume it's like 5 times worse than what is being said.
Yeah.
So if they're actually being like, yeah, this kind of maybe possibly accidentally, potentially on purpose, maybe was drug money involved, then it's like there was drug money involved.
That's also, that's the basis of the crack epidemic.
I was going to say people in
story, right?
Compton helped pay for it.
Yeah.
It was kind of like a Cold War tax on American people. And also when you have a felony drug conviction, you don't get to vote anymore.
Of course.
And you were probably going to vote Democrat anyway. So take a seat,
Yeah. 2 birds with one rock.
The Sandinistas have even involved themselves in the international drug trade. I know every American parent concerned about the drug problem will be outraged to learn that top Nicaraguan government officials are deeply involved in drug trafficking.
It is so fucked. I can't even put it into words. Like but this is the thing. It's like, this is what I've learned, from studying this history over the last 10 to 12 years. The Gary Webbs of the world are always considered to be the cynics, and the Oliver Norths of the world are never considered to be cynical.
Yeah, right.
When in
They're
fact
the starry-eyed
fucking
believers.
opposite. There is the opposite.
Completely right.
In order to be an Oliver North, you have to be cynical beyond measure to be in that meat suit.
He was like an Operation Phoenix guy, right? Ollie North was like a subordinate to Singlaub, I think, during that period.
I don't recall that part. I do have Doug Valentine's book, but I haven't read it, but not in a long time. But I was looking through Singlaub's autobiography, and he talked about North being, kind of inexperienced and thinking he was all of that. Yeah. Singlaub was like, no, I was doing air supply operations all the way back to, as long as they've existed as a thing. And, Singlaub basically tells the press, if I was the one running those planes, they wouldn't have been shot down. And these people certainly wouldn't have their, passports and stuff on them so that they could be readily identified,
Yeah.
But that was in reference to the cargo plane that got shot down. You're talking about a Cessna. That's something different.
Well, it was a helicopter that accompanied the Cessnas. That was the thing that ended up making the story huge. By the end of '84, increased attention to the Contras' war atrocities and further leaks about probable CIA involvement led to the passage of the Boland Amendment, which was supposed to be the death knell of the U.S. engagement with the Contras. And what I guess was a protest against this by Reagan, a protest against the widespread collapse of public and political support for the anti-communist struggle in Nicaragua and elsewhere. Reagan publicly declared in early of '85 that the Contras
are the moral equivalent of our founding fathers and the brave men and women of the French resistance. We cannot turn away from them, for the struggle here is not right versus left, but right versus wrong.
Which side is the face peeling on, Keith?
This is the time when they, got the Mujahideen that would later, plague us or whatever in Afghanistan, and they're being feted at the White House, and
yeah.
This is back when Osama bin Laden was a good guy.
Well, he was. I mean, Wackel was, very aware of this. They saw that fight as part of the larger overall fight. I also think, I was thinking also about the Israel relationship a little bit, and it became a bit clearer to me while reading this that because I've kind of never been totally sure why like the CNP went head over heels for like the Israel project and stuff, and it's kind of making more sense as this goes on. Like, there's definitely this sense that somebody had to be the stay behind to control Middle Eastern communist forces from rising. I think that there was a lot of paranoia around that, and I think probably a lot of this, crazy Nam Jesus apocalypse stuff is in service to that function, because they do like to blend those realms, between the magical and the
yes,
really
the Minas
existing.
Tirith of the Middle East.
Yeah.
White City.
Oh man.
Oh shit.
But it
Okay,
does line up. You know what I mean? You don't have to get too like wacky about it to see that there's, another anti-communist resistance force out there. Like, okay.
Or you could just look at a map and go, what's in the neighborhood? Oh, it's the Eastern Mediterranean. Oh, there's the Bosporus.
Yeah.
There's your warm water ports for Russia.
Yeah.
And then over here we have the Suez Canal, which opens up access to the whole Southern Ocean. So,
yes. Plus, you just know that the Russians have developed a super complex, maybe psychically inspired scheme to take the whole lot. Like the situation's urgent.
It is just bizarre in 2025 to have spent like a decade studying people that you can just like, what do they all have in common? Well, ask them how they feel about the Jews, and we can start there. You know what I mean? Like, yeah. Anyway, I don't want to talk about Israel too much.
No,
You talk about them, man.
It was because it's very eerie to be reading this while there's regime change being planned in Venezuela. At the same time as
I know.
It's just we're still here. It never ends. Yep. And but this story has to anyway because time exists.
Yes. And in the 80s and during all this, the Israelis were selling boatloads of weapons to Latin American ostensible Nazis. Anyway.
Yeah. So I think like Reagan having this response to the Contras probably piqued public and press interest even more. The AP uncovered that the National Security Council had been handling contracts with Wackel under Singlaub's control. The AP reported that Singlaub indeed had a personal contact in the White House, and that was the first time anybody had read the name Oliver North in the press. John basically doxed Ollie and set in motion a series of investigations that would ultimately break open the entire Iran-Contra affair. So when the scandal broke in 1986, the administration tried to make John Singlaub maybe kind of the fall man for the whole operation, like ask that guy. But Singlaub had already kind of outed Oliver North. So finally, the AP ran a story in June 10th of 86 that directly implicated North in the White House of violating congressional law and establishing that Singlaub was their private intermediary. North would testify before Congress and sell out some of his buddies, so he ultimately got off the hook. And I think, everybody ultimately kind of got off the hook more or less. There's some people got some punishment, but not, But I mean, Singlaub fucking didn't. Like, Singlaub got a huge pass when the connection started to get made between, the Israeli, Iranian, Lebanese contact that he had in the Contra war. Ollie North ended up bearing a lot of that burden, I guess, because he became the public face. But, whatever, he was fine. Reagan went on air, seeming to cop to the whole thing in 87, but then went full denial and began to get increasingly senile. And he got let off the hook. There were a bunch of indictments, including 4 of the CIA guys and Caspar Weinberger, Secretary of Defense. But I mean, compared to these people were not only responsible for horrors that fucking Central America probably hadn't seen since the conquest. This was insane. And they also, on top of that, added stupid, scammy fire to the, uncountably deadly Iran-Iraq war that was going on. It added some grease to the Israel-Lebanon invasion. It possibly made crack a thing, as like a way
it definitely made crack a thing.
Okay,
we can just say it.
Used crack as a fucking bake sale to fund like genocidal activities in Central America.
Baking
like,
soda
all of that.
to be exact. But yeah, exactly.
Yeah, well, there you go. Thank you. So while I mean, so these guys, what punishment fits, like that's enormous amounts of evil done. So while John Singlaub might have survived the crime of multiple genocides, Western Goals did not. John left the leadership and it fell apart, as I mentioned in the previous episode, to internal squabbles over the throne. Indeed, it was already essentially gone by the end of 86, even before this whole affair had run its full course. And I don't really know what happened to John in the 90s. I'm very curious. I wonder if you have some information there. I imagine he was like a favorite in Soldier of Fortune magazine and stuff.
Well, he had gotten involved with starting an arms company called Geomilitech in the late 80s.
Right.
So there was that. I don't really like this book as much as maybe some people do, but there's a book by Ken Thomas called The Octopus.
The Octopus.
That deals with the Promise scandal and Danny Casolaro, who got what I've termed the Gary Webb Award for journalism. We get suicided.
Yeah, I see.
And Singlaub's name comes up a few times in that book, and it's linking the Enterprise, which was kind of a fairly official name for the arms pipeline for the Contras in the 80s. They link the Enterprise with the secret team with the Octopus. And again, these things are too facile. And it's that secret team meme, just like a zombie, and it's like, I'm not really sure how much Singlaub really had to do with any of that stuff, but that's some stuff that happened in the 90s. I will tell you that in the late 80s, there began something, and this was a spinoff of the Council for National Policy, called the American Freedom Coalition.
Oh, yeah.
And this is Mooney funded.
Yeah.
And Singlaub was a big part of this organization, and he was kind of a spokesman for it for a little bit. But they organized chapter by chapter, and it was supposed to be statewide chapter leadership structure, so a little bit cellular.
Yeah.
And it was a conservative activist, constellation of organizations. So depending on what the big issue in whatever state, that's where they would go. So there was a Frontline documentary from PBS called The Resurrection of the Reverend Moon.
On February 9th, 1991, in Rapid City, South Dakota, more than 1,000 people rallied in support of U.S. troops fighting in the Persian Gulf. The rally was sponsored in part by a group of local veterans. Diane Peterson was the rally's principal organizer.
I'm a vet myself, and I had a sister over there, and I really just wanted to do something in support of the troops. So I organized what I called a little yellow ribbon walk.
It's great. Many more than I expected.
And I was approached by the American Freedom Coalition, who told me that they had a rally planned for the same day and wanted to merge with me.
And so these you see these interviews with these farmers in like Iowa and stuff, and they're like, I didn't realize it was this Mooney stuff. I don't like that Mooney stuff.
Okay.
And senators, and they don't tell me. They don't give me the information. So I go to the library, and I find some interesting things. The American Freedom Coalition is an extension of the Unification Church, Moonies for short.
Then find out Unification Church is behind it. That sort of threw me. I say to myself, what are they trying to gain from this? Because, everybody's heard of the Unification Church. We've all heard of the Reverend Moon. What's he got behind it?
I felt a little bit abused, because I felt I was used. My influence with the veterans organizations was probably a little bit used.
But it was the American Freedom Coalition. Anyway, Singlaub was a big proponent of starting that. He was big in starting all that.
Okay.
So was Howard Phillips.
Okay.
And the Moonies provided the money. Although when they say the Moonies provided the money, that was just like a shell that all kinds of money passed through.
Sure. Makes sense.
And it's just like this self shit coding thing.
Yes.
Like there would be, I'm sorry, there would be no daddy, the guy that runs the earth now.
Yeah.
Or whatever.
Dad.
Without the Moonies.
You're right. You're right.
It just the mind control cults and messianic fever dreams among the right. They did not start in 2015.
There's Mooney
that was cultivated.
There's Mooney shit that takes you all the way up to the Jan 6 stuff. That happened. I mean, it's nuts. I'm not ready for that story at the moment.
Yeah, I know, but
we skipped Causa. We skipped Causa completely in this story.
We skipped Causa. Nope, I'm not going to go there. We've been at this for a while.
Yes,
I'm tempted to
talk
about their role. Yeah. But I will say this is just an interesting thing. This is my little Singlaub story I've kind of saved for the end here.
Aw, thanks.
And I'll do a little one and then a real one. The little one is I've looked through the Arizona archives as a congressman, Eldon Rudd, and another congressman, maybe at the state level, Bob Stump. They were both part of the United States Council for World Freedom.
Rudd and Stump?
And I got to go through, I got to go through both of their papers years ago because they had folders for USCWF. And, in both of these guys, they've got, documents related to the Committee for a Free Afghanistan in there. So that was interesting. They're trying to lobby for, military aid to the people that would later do 9/11. With a lot of help from the inside anyway. But also the USCWF, you're talking about who got away with what and who. The IRS went after the U.S. Council for World Freedom and their nonprofit status pretty hard in the late 80s. After Iran-Contra broke, after Inside the League came out, same year, by the way, nice timing.
Okay.
I'm sure everything's fine. So there's a lot of correspondence back and forth about what does the IRS want? What do they, what else do they, we thought we did everything, that they asked, but now they want more. And so they were USCWF and Singlaub, they're writing editorials and press releases in the Ukrainian paper and in the regular newspapers using the attack by the IRS as fodder for fundraising appeals, The IRS is on our backs. We have to hire all these high-powered attorneys to fight them off.
Yeah.
We need your help in the fight for freedom more than ever, blah, 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 blah.
Okay.
So in Singlaub's biography, so this is just something that's that just bothers me for years. Like there's a book called Gold Warriors written by Sterling and Peggy Seagrave. And start the clock, 30 seconds.
Okay. I'll be really impressed. Go for it.
During World War II, the Japanese went and looted the ever-living shit out of all kinds of countries, Indochina, China itself, Korea, of course, Indonesian islands, Singapore, everywhere they went. And gold, jewels, things that even the European colonists that had taken over, like the Dutch East Indies, didn't touch. They're like, we don't want to upset the natives too much. We'll leave their big, giant gold Buddha statues intact. And the Japanese are like, nope. Put that in this, on this cargo ship. And so they looted the crap out of the Pacific Rim. And they thought they were going to get out of the war with the Philippines under their control. So they buried hundreds of caches of gold, jewels, platinum, silver, priceless religious artifacts, Shang bronzes that were thousands of years old, priceless Korean ceramics, blah, 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 all this stuff. And they buried him in all kinds of things. If you ever hear the famous story about the Japanese holdout guy in the jungle that won't come out, and they have to get his commanding officer to come surrender, get him to surrender. Well, the commanding officer is the guy in charge of the Golden Lily program, and that's who comes and relieves the guy because he's guarding a cache of gold. And the thing that bothers me about it, or that just fascinates me about it, is at the end of the war, some people got tortured. They gave up the locations of a lot of this gold, and it became like an underground slush fund. It's kind of like the Black Eagle Trust, but the Pacific version. And it's just this fund for fighting the Cold War with off of the inventory of world gold holdings. These things are not part of what's understood to be the world's gold supply. So it would probably have destroyed the price of gold internationally if all of that was just reported and said, here you go, So instead, it's just this weapon, an economic weapon. So why does it bother me so much? Because it's like one of the biggest open not secrets of the world, and it changed the world. So anyway, okay. So Singlaub, the government in the Philippines changes from Marcos to Aquino in the mid 80s. Yeah. And the Marcos dynasty, that's according to Singlaub and others, that's where the Marcos people got a lot of their fortune from, was from these gold recoveries. Oh. And they would let treasure hunters go like, oh yeah, here's a permit. Go ahead. I hope happy hunting. I hope you find something. And then the treasure hunters that are with a charter from the government, they go find the thing. And here comes helicopters landing, and it's Marcos people going, give me that. Give me that. Good job. I'll take that. No, you can get out of the country, bro. Thank you, though.
Okay.
Mama needs a new pair of shoes. So,
yeah, buddy.
So Singlaub goes and through the John Birch Society, they create a company called the Nippon Star. And then there's another company, shell company they have called Phoenix Associates.
Oh, God damn it.
And they're chartering vessels, and they're involved with the American deep state, special forces, CIA people, but mostly just their own little private people, right?
Yeah.
And they got these crews of treasure hunters, and they find a guy that had been one of these people that got screwed over by the Marcos people a decade before. Yeah. They're like, hey, buddy, we got a job for you. And Singlaub is bearing paperwork and permits that he says come from the Marcos regime or the Aquino regime, saying, no, we are legal, dude. We can go get this. And you are the guy that knows where these things are at. So here's going to be your cut. Here's going to be our cut. We got this ship. We got the crew. We got the excavation equipment. We got the permits. We're legal. And so they go and they're trying to dig these things up, and all kinds of like really dumb hijinks ensue.
Sure.
Like, and it's all involved with Singlaub. Like, for example, they find out that the house that they've been living in and is their kind of their headquarters on land where they've been conducting business, decoding encrypted communications by radio, etc., is right next door to a KGB safe house / listening post. And the guy, I think his name was Curtis, that was like the guy that got screwed in all this. He was just like, I was so upset. I couldn't believe it. We're sitting there talking. The windows are open because it's hot as hell. And the literal KGB is right next door, just taking notes on our conspiracies, and just the sloppiness of it. The permits turned out to be fraudulent and not legitimate. Mm-hmm. Somebody got assassinated with shellfish poisoning. It was just crazy, like this whole story, and it's in Gold Warriors, but also it's in he talks about it in Hazardous Duty.
Oh, does he? Interesting.
Yeah, and the way it's portrayed, this is around page 500 of that book.
God damn it.
But the way it's portrayed in Gold Warriors, according to the people that they interviewed, and this guy that they interviewed for it, he had recorded, because he'd been through this shit in the 70s. So with these other guys approaching him, he's like, I'm recording every damn thing, every phone call. I'm getting a record of all this stuff. If I get screwed, I'm taking people with me this time.
Yeah, good for him.
And so the authors of Gold Warriors, they got to hear all these tapes of the high-level people in the operation, Nippon Star, Singlaub, and this other guy, I can't remember his name. But, they're all just like McDonald with Bill Casey, right? In public, they're all like, this guy's so great, absolute crack team of professionals. But like secretly, when the cameras are off, but this guy's recording device is on, these guys are at each other's throats. As soon as the curtain closes, these guys are like, fuck you, man. They're at each other's throats behind the scenes all the time. And the guy's like, I like Jack Singlaub, but the guy could never stop talking. He just talked too much, and it got us into trouble. So the whole thing was kind of this con job, but also like the Singlaubs of the world, they kind of conned themselves too.
Yeah.
And this is the whole thing about believing your own bullshit. They're about to invade Mexico,
Exactly.
Same kind of thing. But here's the other part, though. And if you look in the page 500 or so of Hazardous Duty, he's got these vignette of, meanwhile, in the Philippines, this is what we were going through with trying to get Yamashita's Golden Lily Gold, And then the next section, he'll be like talking about the Iran-Contra scandal breaking.
Yeah.
And then we're back in the Philippines, blah, 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 blah. And so here's what I found. I did a FOIA years ago, got a bunch of press readouts from the little boys over in Langley at the Central Intelligence Agency.
Okay.
Who provided me with these press readouts. It was just basically like transcribed articles from newspapers. So you get this amalgam of all of the stuff that the local analysts are reading. And so there's all this reporting about communist insurgency happening at this time. This is 1987, okay? These communist insurgencies happening there. And these rebels are against the government. And John Singlaub is over there in theater helping in the fight against these communists. And the Mooney Causa people are involved. People from the Christian Anti-Communist Crusade, which is based out of Australia, are involved. John Singlaub is involved. The LaRouche people are involved. All in this counterinsurgency thing. So John Singlaub is over there in the Philippines fighting against communists. He's in some kind of private capacity because he got retired a whole decade before, as you talked about. But like also he's on this treasure hunting jaunt. Like at the same time, like which one are you doing? Are you doing both? Is the gold digging thing a cover for what you're really doing, providing material support and intelligence? Is the Nippon Star have a bunch of signals intelligence equipment on it? What are you doing?
Yeah.
Are we treasure hunting or are we doing counterinsurgency?
Yeah. Yeah. Right. Yeah.
So I was looking at the book and looking at Gold Warriors and looking at these press readouts, and it's all happening in 1987. I'm like,
oof, what a time.
It's really weird, man.
It's exactly when you need something like this too.
And so what is he raising the money for? He wants the gold because it's going to help bail out the U.S. Council for World Freedom.
Yeah,
and
right.
He's literally saying that, but also he's saying, and this is like official quote from him in, I think, Gold Warriors, we want to use this money to start our own private CIA and FBI, which they kind of already had with Western Goals.
And the ASC.
They want no, excuse me. He said, we want to have our own private military industrial complex. That's what he said.
What the fuck?
Right. And if they would have gotten some of that gold,
it's called America,
they could have done
dude.
it.
Okay.
Right.
Yeah, true.
Like you already work for it.
Yes, for real. Yeah.
I don't know how helpful any of that is, but it's just a really interesting story about like the late 80s. In the 90s, it's the American Freedom Coalition. And I'll close with this. He was a big part of the Phyllis Schlafly, Fred Schlafly network. Fred Schlafly is the lesser known of the power couple that was the Schlafly. No Netflix documentary for him.
True.
Or series for him.
Biopic series.
Fred actually ran the American Council for World Freedom for a little while in the mid 70s.
Right.
Not a lot of people know that, but
he was there a lot in Brazil. He's hanging out with the
TFP
Correa
guys.
de Oliveira.
Yeah,
these guys, yeah, absolutely right.
Well, they had the Eagle Forum. That was Schlafly's newspaper and kind of her operation. And Singlaub was really close with them for the rest of his life. He was very much he would today be called a neoconservative. If you look in his autobiography, he's talking right at the end about how amazingly responsive the Bush administration was to what was happening in Kuwait when Saddam Hussein invaded. Yeah. And he said the American people should be proud. And of course, the American Freedom Coalition that he helped start was pushing that line at the same time. Trying to get gin up support for it.
Okay.
Definitely was on the pro-Ukraine side in terms of what's going on right now. And he died at the age of 100.
100 in 2022.
In 2022. But
Crazy.
He was
right
there back to the 1980s captive nations kind of propaganda line that all those wacko guys were always talking about. And just, we need boots for the Ukrainians. We need humanitarian kits for the soldiers at the front line. And it's coming out on a typewriter. He's like 100 years old.
Dude, yes.
And being a fundraiser for the cause. That was a big part. Not as fun, not as sexy as going into, the theater where guerrilla warfare is happening. There's the work you got to do at the office, which is begging people for money and you take a modest like 60%.
Exactly.
Of the take.
Yeah. No, because he was in
and the
2000.
rest goes. To,
It's true. In 2008, he was on the board of directors of something called the Coalition to Salute America's Heroes, which ended up falling to corruption investigations, and they were just taking money for themselves. It was another big scam he ran.
But I trailed off, and my tangent went on a tangent. No, it's my fault, not yours. But the Phyllis Schlafly Eagle Forum gave its first ever award called the Jack Singlaub Award.
Right. Yeah.
To Michael Flynn.
That's right. Who Singlaub defended from whatever his lying to the FBI. He wrote to Bill Barr trying to get him exonerated. I think he did ultimately get.
Bill Barr, by the way, was Attorney General under George H.W. Bush and presided over the pardoning of all of those Iran-Contra people.
Yes, that's a good connection. Well done.
And
I forgot about that bit.
And then Bill Clinton, when he got into office, because he was dirty and is dirty AF, running drugs out of Arkansas in the what they used to call GIDO, Guns In, Drugs Out operation.
Yeah.
And that little episode in the Mena airport and everything, he got made through that. And when he got to be president, part of the deal was, all right, we're not going to say shit about Iran-Contra, right? We're turning the page, right? So he didn't go after anybody, and it quickly went into the memory hole thanks to Bill Clinton, but also Bill Barr, who would later become Attorney General again. Anyway, back to Singlaub and the Mike Flynn. So Mike Flynn belongs in the same tradition, an army guy that's a vigilante,
right?
And this deep state, we got to fight him.
Kind of birch-brained.
Whether it's Douglas MacArthur or John Singlaub kind of took that mantle, and Mike Flynn kind of has it now. And his Q bots have apparently turned on him, and I'm fucking here for it.
Yeah, it's interesting times. The fair fight's about to start. We'll see. We hopefully can survive it. When he was advocating for Michael Flynn in 2020, he was doing that from Phyllis Schlafly's organization, America's Future Incorporated, when he was president of it.
Right.
Yeah. Well, yeah. Well, okay. Like we said, the man finally died January 9th, 2022. But Keith, we both know you never really leave the agency. And when the great Quigley returns to usher in the golden age of Nam Jesus, I think we'll see him again. I think we'll see his little gnome ears once more, tossing pinkos into the lake of fire.
Yes. The Keith Richards of the Cold War.
That's right.
Except Keith Richards is still alive, so.
Well, okay. All right.
Okay.
Oh, thanks, John. Well, that's it. That's what I got. I think, you know what? You did tell me something fun, though, that I wanted to share with the listeners. And that was that you remembered that Alex Jones grew up reading Western Goals with his dad publications.
That's right.
Did Donald Trump. And Alex believes that's something that makes him and Donald kindred spirits because they both had dads who read Western Goals. Yep.
And you can find out if you Google Alex Jones CIA dentist.
Yes. Yeah.
You can find out
Larry
there somewhere. There's an article on a really weird European website that I think it's called The Cult of National Security Trolls, where it talks about Alex Jones living on a compound in Guatemala City.
Oh, come on.
In the 80s.
No.
And his being raised on John Birch Society stuff, and his dad was a dentist for the CIA.
Nope.
What the fuck?
Nope. Don't like it. I don't like it.
Just stop.
Stop it.
Yeah.
All right. Well, Keith, any final words for our listeners before we close this chapter of the Western Goals, which is our first, by the way, this is the State Between Us' first two-parter, I believe.
Oh yeah, because we went on for too long.
No. I mean, there was a Western Goals part 1 and this is part 2.
Oh, that's right.
It's a nice chunky part 2. It's bottom heavy. It's pear-shaped, you see.
Yeah, well, Western Goals went into Spitz-Chanel's hands after Roy Cohn, and it kind of just, from what people say, it kind of became just another organ in the enterprise funneling money to the Contras. But I suspect that there's got to be more to the story because, they collected all of those files, that all of that intelligence on alleged subversives throughout the country.
Yes.
Where did all that stuff go?
Well, what friend of Donald Trump, Roy Cohn's mentee, what friends has he had on and off that may have developed massive databases, AI enhanced things, Palantir, etc.? I mean, I wouldn't be surprised at all if some of this ended up being digitized and sold on to one of the tech bros. Why not?
Yeah.
Why not?
It's called, we get in the golf cart, you and me, Lindsey Graham.
Yeah.
And we're going to just go out for a couple of holes. And then the caddy pulls up and they pull out a manila folder and it's got some pictures of you cosplaying as ladybugs. And then we say, okay, Lindsey, are we going to be a team player or what?
We cool?
My theory, and I'm not the only one to come up with this, so I'm not going to claim it, is that, that accumulation of over 100 years of private intelligence on people and dirt and blackmail material.
Yes.
And something Epstein, something,
Yeah.
Resulted in a kind of omerta of the American elite, to where somebody that shows up that's got access to all the files and all the dirt on everyone could just show up and own the whole American political class and make the Republican Party bend to his will because he's got the filthy fucking dirt on every one of them. And so you could also just retire, I guess, Fritz, if you don't want to deal with it, because you can just get out of the way. I got a couple of people that are ready to run. We were going to primary you, spoiler alert.
Right, you weren't going to win anyway. You could just walk away, Miss Green. I feel you. I do feel you on this. And also, I would love to know, honestly, I would really like to know, just for, there's every possibility that these people are sitting on, like you said, a century-old files assembled by a fucking Nazi. It's wild, these things. So there we are. What do we do about it? Well, we take December a little easy. Keith, that's what we do. We take December a little bit easy. We have some fun with the patrons. I've been neglecting. I haven't done a tavern meeting since you and I talked, actually. So I'm planning some sort of fun stuff for them. But for free listeners, I think you probably won't see me again until January. So plenty of time to absorb all this information and to maybe read through some of the many books that are going to end up in the references for this very episode.
Can I do YouTube? Books are hard.
That's where the money is. I'm not saying no. I'm not saying no to it. That's where I stand on that right now. But,
all right,
Keith.
Time to go for me, buddy. I'm going to start December early. Thanks for the opportunity to be on your show. Flavor Flav's out.
Thanks. Thank you so much. You help me make things make sense. And then sometimes you just take it right away from me by adding stuff about Causa. But I'll get there. I'll get there. All right, man. See you later.
All right, buddy.
Now over there in Managua Square, with American-made bombs falling everywhere, kill women and children and animals too. These bombs are made by people like me and you. And we're told that we hold a big stick over them. But I know what I've read, that peace is in our hands. Over there in Guatemala, my friend, we're making mistakes there once again. Uncle Sam supports a fascist regime that doesn't represent the people over there. And we learn and believe